I'd like to call this meeting, the Clay County Commission, to order. We will start with our invocation. Mr. Nick, I just said your name correctly, I'm sorry, a moment ago. Sybots will be giving our invocation.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Nick Sybots from Faith Vineyard Church. Would you join me in prayer? Father, we're so thankful as we enter this season of time of gratitude and thanksgiving for all the blessings that you've put into our lives. Father, we're thankful for the commissioners and their role in leading the county. I just pray a special blessing over them and their families, their protection. God, we just know that your word promises that those that ask for wisdom receive it. So we just continue to ask for wisdom as we lead and as we guide. God, in closing, I just pray a blessing over this county, that the Lord would bless and keep the county, that he would cause his face to shine upon it and be gracious to it. The Lord would lift his countenance upon the county, and that it would give it peace. In your name we pray. Amen. God bless you.
Thank you. Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Nolte? Commissioner Withington? Here. Commissioner Lawson? Here. Commissioner Wagner?
Here.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Here.
Commissioner Thompson? Here. Commissioner Johnson?
Here. With that, we will move for the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion for this evening's agenda? Commissioner Johnson, did you wish to be recognized? Okay, that's okay. Commissioner Wagner, you are recognized.
Thank you. Move to approve tonight's agenda.
Excuse me. Motion's been made for the approval of this evening's agenda. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, you are recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Wagner?
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes, aye.
Commissioner Withington? Yes. Commissioner Lawson? Yes. Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. That brings us to the public comments of our part of our agenda. I understand that there are some folks interested in commenting on roads. We have that as a discussion item later on in the meeting. Obviously, any citizen is welcome to make any comments during public comments, so it is your choice to either make comments now or later. With that, I would remind any citizens who want to make comments that they make sure that the button is pushed and the caller on the microphone is green. Identify yourself and then please address the commission. With that, I see no one coming up for public comments. That brings us to our consent agenda. Administrator?
The consent agenda allows the Commission to act upon items considered to be routine and approved in one motion. These may include items that have been reviewed by the Commission in a prior session. There will be no separate discussion unless a Commissioner requests that an item be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. There are two items on the consent agenda this evening. 2023 Ordinance 39 is the reappropriation and revision to the adopted budget of the current year for the third allocation for $875 awarded by the City of Liberty for the pilot extension program for the Parks Department. And Resolution 2023-339, approving a cooperative agreement between Clay County Sheriff's Office and Wood Heights Police Department for the transfer of a 2016 Ford Interceptor SUV.
If there are no actions requested by any commissioners on our consent agenda, I will entertain a motion. Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. Move to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Motion been made for the approval of this evening's consent agenda. Discussion? Seeing none, you are recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Wagner?
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Withington? Yes. Commissioner Lawson? Yes. Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. That brings us to our regular agenda. There are three items this evening, the first one being 2023-340. Administrator?
Resolution 2023-340 is approving the grant acceptance for the fiscal year 2023 Emergency Management Performance Grant from the State Emergency Management Agency, and Captain Agdarian is here to give information to the Commission.
Please proceed.
Captain Amy Agdarian, Clay County Sheriff's Office. Good evening, Commissioners. This is an annual performance grant for the Emergency Management Division, and we have had this grant in existence for as long as I can remember. We apply for it annually. I do want to note that this grant funds 3 full-time positions, and it is a 50-50 grant match for a director, a specialist, and an assistant. And I have with me actually someone I'd like to introduce you to, for those of you who don't know her. This is Annie Pelzel. She is our new Emergency Management Director, and I wanted to take an opportunity to introduce her to you in conjunction with this grant that she and I will be working together to administer this year. I also want to speak just briefly a couple of things from Sheriff Aiken, who could not be here tonight. He's at a town hall meeting, and he wanted to relay to you how much faith he has in Annie because of her work ethic and her knowledge of the emergency management program, and her uncanny ability to foster relationships with people in the department and other county offices and other agencies. So just wanted to put a face to the name Director Pelzel, and to let you know that she is here to answer any questions, and I as well, if you have any questions regarding this grant.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the hard work you folks do over there on acquiring grants. It's certainly appreciated. Commissioner Withington, I believe you're seeking recognition.
Yeah, no, I don't have any questions about this. I just want to say congratulations on the promotion. I've been able to get to know you over the last couple of years, and when Melissa left, we had some pretty big shoes to fill, but very confident you'll be able to do that, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, I too just want to say congratulations. I've actually in my past life hired several of your positions and have gone through a lot of resumes, and I know how critical your position is, particularly when things go sideways and the feces hits the oscillator and we have a major event in this county, how important your role is. So congratulations, and hopefully you're up for the task, and good luck to you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. Move to approve 2023-340.
Motion has been made for the approval of 2023-340. Further discussion? Seeing none, you are recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Wagner.
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Withington.
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson.
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Next on our regular agenda is 2023-318. Administrator.
Resolution 2023-318 is approving the 2024 Employee Assistance Program Coverage Agreement with CuraLink, and Director Callahan is here to provide information to the Commission.
Please proceed. Don't forget to turn on your mic.
Good evening, Commissioners. Kim Callahan, Clay County HR Director. Let's see here. This evening, I'm here to present our recommendation for the 2024 Employee Assistance Program. Oops, here we go. Let's see. Here we go. Okay. What is a EAP, an Employee Assistance Program? It's a confidential benefit that provides employees and their families with support for personal and work-related problems such as stress, anxiety, financial problems, parenting challenges, work-life balance issues. Why is the EAP program important? It can help employees to improve their mental and emotional well-being, reduce absenteeism, and most of all, cope with difficult life events. So EAPs typically offer a variety of services, including short-term counseling, to be included with the contract that we're recommending. It also does referrals to community resources for our employees, and specifically crisis intervention. This year, we had CBiz, our insurance broker, evaluate an EAP replacement due to ongoing service issues members were having with our current provider. CBiz presented 2 EAP providers with specific focus on law enforcement, and they are, as you see, PAS, which is Personal Assistance Services, and CuraLink. So, and their cost ran basically pretty close to the same. After evaluating these services, we are recommending that we go with CuraLink this year. This is a program overview and key features that they provide. It is short-term counseling. I'm sorry, I thought someone was standing here. I was like, oh, okay, let me get back here. Okay. Available to all employees, spouses, and dependents at no cost to them. There's short-term counseling. There's 6 short-term counseling to them for each incident. It could be more than one issue. So, and this is not just people that are on our health insurance, it's for every employee that we have, full and part-time. So it also provides work-life benefits, coaching services. They have technology platforms. There's an app for everything. Okay, they also, for client services, they have strategic thought partnership, integration, promotion. They're going to help us promote CuraLink to all our employees, technology, reporting, and analysis. So in addition to this, let me go back, Blue Cross Blue Shield increased the wellness fund to cover the cost of an on-site therapist. Okay, so we're currently seeking a private office to use for this, and this will be monthly. It'll be starting out at about 4 hours a month for an on-site therapist. And there have been other counties and cities that are utilizing this, so, you know, since Blue Cross Blue Shield is providing us with that fund, we think that's a good thing for our employees. And we're looking at possibly March or April being able to open that service. But this EAP program will start in January. So the name, what we're promoting or recommending is CuraLink, but they will be, that's their vendor name. They will go by the name of Support Link to all our employees. So that's our recommendation, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It is certainly, we are becoming more and more aware and recognizing further the effects of stress on our workforce, and we certainly appreciate this initiative on your part to come forward with that and help us become what we aspire to be, and that is an employer of choice. With that, Commissioner Wagner, you're seeking recognition?
Yes, thank you. Quick question, Kim.
Yes.
The explanation of the benefits, that first slide that you threw up there, that one.
Yes.
The next one, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yeah, that first one, I'm sorry.
yes.
If I understand it correctly, it suggests a certain number of times that you can, or if I've followed your explanation, a certain number of times that you can access the counseling. So there's there it is, the 6-session model, 8-session models. It strikes me, especially in law enforcement, that there could be traumatic episodes that can happen more than once or twice over the course of the year. And so just sort of curious as to how, in those sorts of cases, this benefit is available to those individuals who run into multiple issues.
Okay, and I think what you were looking at was short-term counseling, where it says 6.
Right,
Okay, that's for each incident.
okay,
It's not just per year. And so, I mean, someone could have something major that needs crisis intervention,
Yeah.
or, so it might be, and after 6 sessions, they might recommend someone for them to use within their insurance program.
gotcha. So this is really tied to an event as opposed to just the calendar. Gotcha.
Right.
Great, thank you, thank you.
Commissioner Withington, I think you sought recognition?
So we're having on-site counseling. This short-term, the 6 counseling, is that going to be for the on-site? Or can this be virtual? Or how would that be?
Yeah, they can set up virtual sessions where they like to see you when you have a counselor. You could do it on your phone, FaceTime, or on the computer. What we're thinking about for the on-site therapy, if someone has something going on, they need to talk to someone right away, not for regular counseling. That's more that they're going to set up if they need the 6 sessions, because it is going to be limited. You know, and we don't want one person using 6 sessions every month. So we're thinking to use that for someone who's maybe just lost someone the week before that week, or their dog died or something, and they need to go talk to someone.
And since we're switching, how many sessions do we currently offer? Is it still 6?
It is 6.
Okay.
We use LifeWorks right now, and the issue we had was, we've had complaints where they weren't able to keep up with the calls that they were getting. The stress right now is just through the roof. Everyone's stressed out about, financial, divorce, marriages, kids, seniors, your parents. There's just so much going on right now, so they haven't really kept up. We've had some complaints, so that's why we decided to look around this year. And we're excited about CareLink. We talked to them and talked to the other programs, and CBiz has worked with them. So they gave us a good recommendation, and we think they're going to be able to.
Okay, yeah, I think this is great, I've been a strong,
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm sorry. The on-site does not count towards the 6.
okay. Yeah, no, I think this is great, I utilized the EAP when I was at Cerner. I'm a strong proponent of access for mental health and everything, somebody that deals with anxiety and depression, so I think this is great, so thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson.
Just a quick question out of ignorance, because I'm curious, and maybe the captain knows this, maybe you do. Does the Sheriff's Department have their own contract for their own police psychologists?
They might have a separate program, but they also use this program because that was a department that we were specifically looking at.
See it.
But do you have something separate besides our EAP program?
So we have the EAP program, which we typically think of as more like you can go and voluntarily take advantage of that. We do have a separate psychologist that we will send people to for like fit for duty assessments.
Okay, perfect.
Please go ahead and identify yourself for the audio recording. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Okay,
okay.
Captain Amy Agdarian, Clay County Sheriff's Office.
Thank you, that's helpful. If there are no further comments, I will entertain a motion. Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. Move to approve 2023-318.
Motion's been made for the approval of 2023-318. Any further discussion? Seeing none, you are recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Wagner.
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Withington.
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson.
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
That brings us to the last item on our regular agenda, 2023-342. Administrator.
Resolution 2023-342 is approving agreements for on-call professional engineering and architectural services with Burns & McDonnell and Piper Wind Architects. This is from our Facilities Department, and Deputy County Administrator Coons is here to provide information.
Please proceed.
Good evening. Donna Kuntz, Deputy County Administrator. This is a request for on-call services for architectural and engineering services. This is a county-wide bid, not just specific to the Facilities Department. To kind of give you an example of what do we do if we really feel like we need an architect and reach out, one of the projects that we have had going on this year that we used architectural services for was a water line study up at our parks, trying to find an alternative to the water line that runs under the lake, that when it breaks, it is a costly repair, to see if there are alternative ways for us to feed to other water districts. What would be the length of that pipe? What is the PSI required to feed our campgrounds during peak seasons? So they have done analysis studies for us. That study has not finished yet, but just to give you an example of what type of service would we reach out to use these people for, and that is one of the examples. We were very fortunate. We had 10 vendors respond to this time, which was a high number, better than we've had in the past. So it was a difficult choice of going through and narrowing these down. We had a committee of 5 that reviewed all of the proposals. We looked at the services they offer. We looked at the type of staff they have, how much they can do in-house, how much do they have to go to other vendors, to subcontract, to provide services for us. And so we finally narrowed it down. These were the top 2 highest scoring vendors. And so this is what we're presenting tonight to seek approval for on-call engineering services and architectural services.
Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, Commissioner Wagner.
Oh, I actually did have a question.
Well, you can have a question then.
Okay, I know there's a rut I get into, but So are any of these two different than who we have previously had for on-call?
Yes, Piper Wind is a new vendor for the county.
Okay, and then whether you want to use this year or last year, what has been our general spend as far as the on-call services for these categories?
That is a great question, and one I should have an answer for. The water line study, and honestly, we are utilizing some ARPA funds for that, and I really don't have the answer off the top of my head.
Well, that's fine, and I guess where I'm really going with the question is we are doing these as on-call as opposed to doing a bid process for those particular projects, because it is, I'm going to assume, faster and cheaper to do it this way as opposed to, if you use the water line as an example, it would be less expensive, more expensive, take more time. Just for the folks at home, trying to explain why we do this sort of thing. Yeah.
Well, having the architects online and using the water line study, that was a study that we felt like we needed to do. But part of the reason of having this is at any given time, there could be a reason we could have a sudden structural issue appear in one of our buildings. We utilize services at our airports. We're utilizing services for our comprehensive plans, and having these people partner with us and having the availability to reach out. I really hate to use the word emergencies, but when you're in the facilities world, things happen and they happen quickly, and we need to be able to have a vendor that has been pre-qualified and has gone through the bid process so that we can make that phone call.
Good enough for me. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Lawson.
Yeah, so when, say that we have a project, who decides whether it's project architect level 4, 3, 2, 1? I mean, obviously, the higher the level, the more expensive they are. Do they make that selection, or do we make that selection?
Well, when we, like for example, the water line study, we asked for a cost proposal before we hired that vendor, and that went back before the commission when we hired the vendor for the water line study. So the only time that we might be reaching out where you would just have to, like, what level would we need? Because there's interior designers on these teams, there's structural engineers, there's electrical engineers. It literally depends on the project, if it's one that we're just reaching out and asking them to come and do something for us.
Okay. And how long is this contract for? I didn't peruse the whole thing.
This is basically a term and supply agreement, so it is for 1 year with the option of 3 one-year renewals.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. Move to approve 2023-342.
Motion's been made for the approval of 2023-342. Any further discussion? Seeing none, you are recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Wagner.
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Withington.
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson.
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
That completes our regular agenda. First on our discussion items is the 2024 Commission meeting calendar under discussion. And Administrator, I believe that is your issue.
Yes, hard to believe that the end of the year is fast approaching, and 2024 will be here before we know it. So what we have proposed and included in your packet is information about next year and the meetings schedule. And I'm going to introduce Brandy Young, who's put the proposal together, talking about the months that have 5 Thursdays or holidays. And certainly this is up for discussion on what the commission chooses to and wants to do. We've tried to find out information, especially around schools, when schools are starting, when their holidays are. And so when we have noted those as no meetings, we've basically kind of base that on various reasons. And with that, I'll introduce Brandy, and she can answer your questions about those dates and hopefully The goal would be to get some guidance from the commission so we can put the calendar together for 2024 for everyone, and then you can schedule appropriately as you would like.
Good evening, Commission. Brandy Young in administration. So the calendar, 2024 is a leap year. So we have 5 months that have 5 Thursdays. First one is February. We did the 15th based on the school districts are out for a couple days. So that kind of gives us a whole week. Anybody wants to go on vacation? In May, it is the last Thursday of the month, right around, it's the holiday week. Obviously, July 4th is on a Thursday next year, so we will not have a meeting on that day, which that's just a normal 4 weeks, so we'll have only 3 meetings that month. August, I did the 15th tentatively, only because that's generally when school is starting, so that may be a week that we have to change depending on the school year. The 2024-25 calendars for districts have not been approved yet, so I wasn't able to find any of those. And then October, it's Halloween. November, Thanksgiving, and December is the day after Christmas. So.
Commissioner, are you
That's it. That's
ready
all
for
I got.
questions? Commissioner Lawson?
Oh, yeah, thank you. Here's the only thing I'm saying. Everybody's going to probably throw rocks at me, but I understand July 4th and some of these holidays. We're not going to be here. I'm going to be eating turkey with the family and all that stuff on the 28th, or leftovers. But here's the way I feel. We don't have a lot of time here. We meet once a week. On times when there are 5 Thursdays in the month and there is not a holiday, I think we meet the 5 weeks. We meet unless it's a holiday. We should be here involved in the business of the county. That's just my feeling. I don't think just because there's 5 weeks or 5 weeks and 5 Thursdays in a month that we dump one of them and just have 4 meetings. I think we just go ahead and fulfill our obligation and meet every time there isn't a holiday. So that's my thought, for what it's worth.
Would it be helpful if Brandy were to identify those particular ones who do not fall on the holidays, just so we have I know you just went through it, but if you could recite to us which proposed no meeting dates actually do not fall on a holiday, that might give us an idea of the scope of what Commissioner Lawson is inquiring.
So I think it would be the February 15th. Because we have a holiday on the 12th and the 19th. So that month that's not a holiday. And May 30th is not a holiday. The 27th, that Monday, is Memorial Day. And then same goes for August. We have no holidays in August.
So it's not that many.
It would really be July 4th, which is a holiday and a Thursday.
Yeah, that's a holiday.
And Thanksgiving Day, right? And certainly, December 26th, the day after Christmas, if the commission wants to meet, that's not really the holiday.
That was kind of a question I had, was because some of them are adjacent to a holiday, like if July 4th were on a Friday.
That's true, I apologize. And to answer your question, certainly, again, it's up to the commission. We'll just say that in prior instances, the thought process of trying to pick a time when there wasn't a meeting would allow the commissioners to basically schedule vacations. And so we weren't then struggling, are we going to have a quorum because individuals are taking time off to be with their families or vacation at all different times, and could we ever run into an issue we didn't have a quorum? So this way, when it comes to planning and zoning items or business of the county, we know then this is a scheduled time, and hopefully people don't have conflicts and that we have a quorum at the meeting, but certainly it's up to the commission.
Well, there have been times like, for example, I was gone one evening, Jay was gone an evening. So, from time to time, people are going to be gone anyway, and we're able to continue on with all but one. So if this were a situation where like, the 4th of July fell, well, on a Monday or something, you know, I could see. But this is on the 4th, that's on a Thursday, then they've got Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you know, they can be gone, so, I don't know, I'm just saying, I think that we're not here that much. So 1 day a week, adding a few days when there's a 5-week in a month, I just feel like we should earn our money and be here. So just my feeling, if everybody doesn't feel that way, I still love you, but, you know, that's just my thought.
Okay, I'm sorry, your mic's still on. Have you concluded your remarks before I move on to the next person?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, great. Commissioner Withington, you were seeking recognition?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you guys mentioned July 4th and Thanksgiving. Halloween's a no-go for me. I won't be here on Halloween. My kids would be disappointed. So I will tell you guys right now, in my perfect attendance streak for Halloween 2024, so.
Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. Well, I'll just suggest, I don't have a problem with this, and there's two reasons. Number one, it's not just creating opportunities for us to go on vacation, it's for staff to be able to go, to have their own opportunities to be away. And I respect that need to be able to do that and know kind of how one can do what they need to do in their personal lives around these Thursday evenings. The other thing I'll just note is I do respect the notion that we're here to do work, and I would submit that there is work that we do outside of when we're in here. And quite honestly, I look at our agendas and I see nothing that can't be worked around, especially when you've got months of advance notice of being able to do it. I mean, all these items here are important, but if you had a month to know we weren't going to be meeting this week, I have a feeling people could work around that and put these out there. So I do think there is an opportunity for us to be flexible. I do think there's still time for us to do our other aspects of the job, even if there is no meeting. And I do want to be respectful that, you know, staff would like to know when they can take a vacation. And so for those reasons, I'm totally fine with what's here, but I too, people can disagree with me, and that's fine too, but that is how I'll take a look at it, so thank you.
Commissioner Lawson, you were seeking
Yeah,
recognition again?
Yeah, the only thing I'm thinking of, you know, you take somebody like Donna, I'll just pick on poor little Donna. She doesn't have to be here. If she and her husband are going to go on a cruise and they're going to be gone over the 4th of July and, you know, say that it was on a different day, or the 30th, whatever it might be, the world isn't going to come to an end. We want her to be able to take her vacation. If it's the clerk, we've got a deputy clerk that's more than capable. She can handle it, or vice versa. I just feel that this all can be worked around. I never, ever want to cause the staff, because we've got a wonderful staff, I never want to do anything that makes their life more difficult. But the fact is, if they miss a meeting, that God bless them, it's not that big of a deal. But us, and I'm with you, we spend a lot of time. This whole week, I have had something that took me away from home, 2 meetings at least a day. So, yeah, but I asked for it. And the people said, okey doke, we'll take you, Joanne. So consequently, I owe this place, my full time. And I just think that when we take the 30th of May, there's no reason we can't meet that week. If somebody's gone on vacation, go. But I just feel strongly that not being here just because is not good enough. So, but whatever the consensus is, I'll go with it. I just think that we should fulfill our obligation.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, sir. So my question is actually for staff, actually, Diana. It looks like it's 3 meetings that we're talking about that don't fall on holidays if you take Halloween out, which I think we should. So you're talking February, May, and August meetings that have 5 Thursdays. Are the reasons why we have traditionally been taking the 5th Thursday off in a month for the commission's benefit or for staff's benefit?
I would say historically, it's probably been for both. First of all, I will say, it is a little bit of a yippee for staff if we get a week that we don't have to do a packet, an agenda packet. It gives us time to focus on something else. But I will say probably it stemmed from when we originally had 3 commissioners. And so when you have 3, right, and you 2 gone, which can happen and has happened here, but then you don't have a quorum. And so by, I think, trying to schedule those times where still, again, 4 weeks out of the month to do the county business and setting that schedule ahead of time gave everybody sort of the opportunity to say, I'm taking my vacation with my kids, and we didn't have to worry about a quorum.
Yeah.
We now have 7, so we can have more people gone and still have a quorum. So I think it's probably a carryover from that,
And-
but we wanted to bring it up and let you all talk about it.
And does us taking a week off, does that create any problems for you as far as, okay, now you got to wait another week to get certain things passed? Does that create a burden at all?
No, typically, that's why we like to schedule it ahead of time, so we know what that timetable looks like, and we plan accordingly for anything that's time-sensitive, or certainly anything that, especially coming out of Planning and Zoning Commission, that needs, we make sure that it's scheduled and occurs in a timely manner, so it's not holding anything up.
Okay. Yeah, so those 3 extra days doesn't bother me one way or another. If for some reason I had to take it off, I would, and I'm sure anybody else would, but without having a problem as far as a quorum. So it doesn't matter to me either way, but if it's an advantage to staff, I'm fine with making staff happy if we can. I didn't mean it bad like that, but.
Further discussion?
And we certainly don't need a decision this evening. I mean, what will typically may happen is when the end of January, 1st of February, we'll say to you all, we'd like to at least enough lead time because of planning and zoning items, because we advertise for those meetings if they come here. And so we do kind of have to know ahead of time. So probably the first of the year, we'll come back to you all and say, what do you all want to do? Do you want to do in February, or do you want to have 5 meetings in February? So we just wanted to bring it out for discussion and see what your thoughts were.
Thank you. That anticipates my question, was whether you wanted some consensus this evening or what your timeline was, and you just indicated that. So unless there's further discussion on this issue, we will take it up as we get closer to the end of the year or when we have, whenever it gets scheduled, and then we will give you the consensus of the commission at that time, and you can act accordingly. Is everybody good with that? Okay, very good. So that ends this discussion item. Next discussion item is 2024 legislative priorities, and that would be the administration again.
Yes, I was asked to put together sort of a list of topics for the commission about whether you had any legislative priorities for 2024. It's not uncommon for an elected body to have a legislative priority. It helps when you are having in contact with social settings or actually schedule meetings with legislators in Jefferson City about what are some of the priorities and some of the things that, from Clay County's perspective, we would like things to occur in Jeff City, or certainly to be part of a solution happening in Jeff City. And so putting together just some things that have been discussed throughout the year so far on things that have come up that either we, sort of be a light to be a clarification, or some things that you may have indicated you felt like were a barrier to county operations. And so this is just a draft. These are just bullet point ideas, things that I've heard. Certainly Senate Bill 190, as we've talked and had several meetings with the commission about, there are certainly some ambiguities in the current legislation that was passed. So there's some things that we would recommend having some clarification in the bill.
Before you start going down the list, what I'd like to do is to make sure that the commission is good with this particular course of action. So I'd like to just make sure everybody in the commission agrees, or at least is open to the notion that we do put together a legislative agenda. It is something we had done once upon a time, but I want to make sure we all have have any questions on the general process and then dig down into the individual issues, if that sounds like, I think that might be more organized. So is there anyone who would like to comment on the process that we are outlining? Commissioner Withington, I believe you sought recognition.
You said we would drill down into individual topics later, so like you don't want me to give something I would like to see put on here right now? Is that what you're looking for?
Well, my wants are not necessarily the rule of the day. No, I might have phrased that incorrectly. What I meant was to buy into the concept. Once we all agree this concept is something we want to do, I'm thinking if we go down the list, that'd be more organized, and
Okay,
then...
yeah, no, I'm fine with this. I'll just chime in with my thoughts.
That is exactly what I want to do, is chime in so that when we're discussing, say, item 1, if you have some observations, make them at that time. And then I think we might just then, once we finish the list and any additions, we'll go ahead and make our wishes known to the staff. So is everybody good with this general process of putting together this list of priorities that we have? As far as, I mean, a list, not this list specifically. Okay. And so with that, I'm sorry, Administrator, but I did want to make sure that we were all kind of on the same page before we got started. So if that sounds like the good way to go, please proceed on item 1.
I'm just going to hit the topics just very briefly. So as we said, Senate Bill 190, which we've had some discussions with the commission about, just trying to get some clarification with that particular recently passed bill. The Kansas City Area Transit Authority appointments. That has been a discussion here at the commission level, and just again trying to clean up the legislation with regard to the legislation currently talks about 3 names will be submitted from Clay County, which the commissioners did vote upon, and that's submitted, and clarification that, you know, the selection should come from that list. That's not necessarily what has transpired. Highway 92. We are requesting, and this is in conjunction, I believe, with Platte County, kind of going together, both of us requesting funding to do a corridor study on Highway 92 to do improvements because, you know, certainly great access, east-west traffic way in the northern part of the county across Platte County also would be very beneficial to our residents. We've certainly heard from the commissioners when we have had residents that have come and asked and appealed their penalty and interest on their property taxes. And as you know, the state statute is very specific on what is an eligible ability for the commission to basically waive a penalty and interest. And in the past, I think there have been some extenuating circumstances that the commission would have liked to have been able to do something different or compromise. Unfortunately, the state statute has not allowed that. The next item is the marijuana sales tax for counties. So as we know, the law changed and does allow cities and counties to put in a sales tax on marijuana dispensaries, but there is some question on whether a county can have a sales tax on a dispensary that is inside a city limit, where that city also has the sales tax, so sort of the stacking approach. Now, when this came out, the county, we chose not to jump in and take that to the voters. Some counties did, and did pass it, along with the cities in their county that also have the local sales tax on their dispensaries. As we had anticipated, there are 2 lawsuits that I'm aware of that have been filed in 2 different counties, challenging whether they can be stacked where it is a city sales tax and a county sales tax. So again, our recommendation is there a way to keep it all out of the courts? And is there something possibly that Jefferson City could do to clarify that option for us? And then the last item that's listed here is, and we've talked about this, is the ability for Clay County to create a sports complex authority, which right now we do not have the ability to do as Jackson County does, and I believe in the St. Louis County does. So those are the items that, from what's happened over the last 10 months, are things that I think you all have discussed. Certainly can add to, delete from, change, whatever your desire is. And we would then create a document that would come back and then would get the commission's endorsement. And then that would be your legislative priorities for 2024.
Thank you. And by the way, the drill down was not a very well-chosen phrase on my part. I just want to make sure everybody has a chance to comment on each one, and we do have some time to, as I say, drill down a little deeper, but I did want to make sure that commissioners had a chance to make whatever comments or additions to this legislative priority. With that, Commissioner Lawson? We'll start with Senate Bill 190, and I believe Commissioner Lawson would like to speak on that issue.
Yeah, on the Senate Bill 190, Commissioner Nolte has spoken with the original writer of the Bill 190 and had him understand what our issues were as far as being more inclusive with all retirees, not just those on Social Security or Social Security eligible. So we wrote our document in that form, and our auditor did a spectacular job. He and the lawyer that works for our assessor got that document all written, and they wanted to have it approved through. Have you seen that? The document that they did? Have you looked at the R190 document?
I've looked at several versions of different.
Mr. Counselor, could you turn on your, thank you.
I've looked at several iterations, and so I think I have seen the latest, but I can certainly make sure I
Okay.
have.
Okay, anyway, the only thing left for us now that we know that this is going to be clarified, or we hope that they get it clarified. But the one thing that I think I'd like to see happen on 190, yes, get that done so it's done legally, but I'd like to see us go ahead and approve that before the end of the year, and really, if we could get it done in November, it'd be even better. So as far as Senate Bill 190, that's really the only thing I have that I'd like to see done.
And I'm assuming there's consensus that this is a good item for us to include on the list? And I don't need to have, head nods will do. Is everybody pretty much comfortable with that being one of our priorities? Commissioner Carpenter.
So, I mean, is the question as outlined in the document specifically here, or just is the question that we should include Senate Bill 190 modifications?
Thank you for that clarifying question. The question that I'm asking, just to be more specific, is that this item does belong here. Clearly, there'll be further discussion on all of these items so that all commissioners have the chance to weigh in. But right now, my question is that this is a topic that should be included on our list.
Very good, yes, then yes, thank you.
Thank you. Very good. With that, I'm sorry, Commissioner Lawson, go ahead and hit your microphone.
Just want to say one quick thing.
There you go.
For those people who are watching, or those people here that aren't aware, Senate Bill 190 is the bill that will allow seniors to have their property tax frozen as of next year, 2024. So in '25, when we may see an increase, that would not be applicable to you. It would stay what it is, and that would continue on forever, as long as you own the home, primary residence. So that's what we're talking about in 190, is the fact that we're giving seniors 62 and older a break on their taxes, on their property tax.
Very good. The second item that I would like to get consensus on that it will be something that we would like to include on this list is the Kansas City Area Transit Authority appointments. That's something that we've been discussing most recently. Again, the specifics are certainly debatable, but what is requested here at this moment is that it would tighten the language up to make sure that the mayor did actually select someone who was nominated by this commission for the ATA board, and then that person, for the sake of independence of action, not be an employee of the city of Kansas City. So I guess first question is if there are any thoughts on that, and then if we can get head nods on that should be included in our list. So are there any questions or comments? Commissioner Carpenter.
Thanks, yeah, so I mean, on the broader question of should it be included, I support including it. I guess I more fully support including the first part with regard to clarifying that it's a shall. I think it's generally been interpreted that way in the past, but there's enough wiggle room in the statute as currently written, so I do agree with clarifying that. The second piece I would have more questions about in terms of sort of what's the thought process behind that. That, to the best of my knowledge, isn't in the current statute.
That would be correct.
And so that would be sort of an expansion beyond what has historically been, because the shall, I think, has historically been assumed. The shall not be a member of the, or shouldn't be an employee of the city would be a new ask. So I would want some more discussion on that piece.
I think that's entirely appropriate. Any other comments or questions? I think I get head nods that that would be included. There's no other discussion on that item. Highway 92, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. We certainly need to be advocating for a very substantial improvement on that roadway. If there are any questions, are there just head nods that yes, that should be included with further discussion and clarification? Good, everybody's good with that. Appeals on penalty and interest on property taxes. Commissioner Johnson, I believe this is an issue you have spoken on?
Yeah, so one of the issues that's always bothered me with this, when it comes to appeals, and I think legally, when you appeal something, you have to appeal to a body that has the authority to overturn or change whatever, the ruling was before. The way that it's written, we really don't have that authority. So it really comes into question, are we really an appeal board? In other words, the way it's written, it's almost like it has to be appealed to the state because the state has the authority over it, we don't. So I certainly think that needs to be changed. If to truly appeal to us, we have to have that authority to change, to make the changes that if we think changes are necessary. And I think that's really what a legal appeal is all about. So yeah, I think we should pursue this and find a way that, hey, either we're the appeal board and we get to change it, or the state sets up some appeal board where they appeal to the state, which I think would be ridiculous. But the way it's set up right now, it seems to be the state has that authority and we don't, and it just doesn't make sense.
I think that's a very salient point on this, and I think that my feel of it is that is kind of the intent of the commission, so perhaps a sharper clarification of that point might be appropriate to alter the item number 4 on here to reflect that. Is that a consensus of the commission to perhaps make that, have staff make that adjustment? Okay, I see head nods all around. So does that give you an idea of what we're looking for on that particular item, Administrator? Very good. Next one is marijuana tax for counties. Is there anyone who, I'm relatively neutral on that. Is there anyone who would wish to speak on that issue? Or is it appropriate for us to pursue, and we'll leave it at that? I'm sorry, Commissioner Carpenter.
Thanks. Yeah, I think it makes sense to ask for clarity. Now, I do have some question. They, if I recall correctly, I think they did this via constitutional amendment, so I have some question as to whether this gets settled legislatively or whether it gets settled in the courts. But if there is a legislative solution that can provide clarity, I support requesting that. Personally, I don't support stacking the taxes. And so that piece, if we were going to affirmatively request the ability to stack, I would dissent on that piece. But those are my thoughts.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes, I do think there needs to be clarification on that, the stacking thing, and particularly, as well as I think it's important that we pursue it at the county level in county jurisdiction, simply because I could see a potential for marijuana dispensaries to move from cities that are taxed to the county that is not taxed. And right now, I don't know that we have any dispensaries in our county area outside of cities.
Correct. I'm not aware of any in the unincorporated area at this time.
And I would like to avoid that if we can avoid that movement from the city to the county simply because we don't tax and they do. I think it'd be fair if it's all the way across taxed everywhere the same.
Commissioner Lawson.
Yeah, in a way, it's kind of like the cart before the horse, but I think that we do need clarification on what we do need to do. You know, I wouldn't want to say we're going to have a sports authority and this is what we're going to do, you know, because we don't know that that's an option that we really need at this point in time. But it'd sure be nice that we knew that if that all comes together, we have the ability to form one.
Oh, we're talking about the marijuana tax at the moment. So-
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I'll certainly
Oh,
be.
I
I'll-
got it, yeah,
That's
I'm in
okay.
the wrong, right church, wrong pew. Yeah, on that, yeah, we do need clarification on that, and yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Withington?
Yeah, I'm not in favor of stacking taxes either, like Commissioner Carpenter had said. I mean, it'd be nice to get clarification, but I'm not in favor of stacking. And, you know, Commissioner Johnson, yeah, we don't have any dispensaries in unincorporated Clay County, but we can always put it on the ballot and ask the voters to go ahead and approve it in case for when they do. So, I mean, we have an election coming up in April. We could put it on the ballot in April if we wanted to.
So just for clarification on my part, is it the consensus of the commission that that this be retained pending clarification, or should pending clarification then whether or not we include it? I mean, how do we want to work
Yeah, I mean,
that?
clarification's fine. I mean, it's not like we're gonna be making a decision on anything, but I was just saying, you know, we have the option if we want to do what Commissioner Johnson pointed out to push it countywide. I mean, we could do that right now and just, you know, who would vote on that? Just the unincorporated part of the county, right? Like, how would that work?
That is a good question. Mr. Counselor, if it's going to only affect unincorporated, it stands to reason that it would only be the people
So
voting, but I don't know.
That's part of the uncertainty, I think, of the statute is, you know, if it's only going to impact the unincorporated area, that would make sense that that's who would vote on it. But there's, I think, also an argument to be made that it would be a countywide vote. Because I'm pretty sure that when Jackson County did it just recently, it was countywide. So that's my suspicion is, my belief, not having read it in a little bit, is it's probably going to empower it to be countywide.
But was Jackson County trying to stack it, or were they just?
They did.
Yeah, so, but if we aren't trying to stack it, we were just going to initially do unincorporated?
Well, again, I think the read of the amendment would say it would be a countywide vote.
Okay,
That's my initial thought.
Okay, thank you.
So am I right, if I'm reading the commission consensus right, we want to keep this on here, however, we do require clarification before we really go much further on this issue. That's okay? I'm getting head nods all around. Does that sound, does that give you sufficient instruction, Administrator? And then the last item, I think, was the enabling legislation for a sports complex authority. I think we all pretty much know what that's about. Commissioner Withington, you are seeking recognition on that point.
Yeah, so for me personally, it's not, I asked her to put this on there. It wasn't necessarily just for Clay County. I don't like how it says, create in a county of the first class, not at the time having a charter form of government. You know, most charter form of governments are a first class county because that's how state law is. So, I would just like to see any first-class county or charter form of county be able to form a sports authority if they want. So I mean, sure, we know why we first had this discussion about Clay County, but for me in general, I would like to see the legislature change that to first-class or charter form of government to allow any first-class or charter government create but I just use Clay County specific, so. Because it wouldn't say Clay County, the legislation doesn't specifically mention any county, it just says first class but not charter form.
And just for a technical point, state statute generally does not name counties by, but by description, so that we would, any proposed legislation would include us by description.
Yeah, I just want to see the state law updated to say first class or charter form.
Okay. Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. I think we will know fairly soon if what has prompted this is going to happen and therefore worthwhile to pursue. But I would also make the notion that even if it were not to be the case, that there still may be value in creating such an authority, because down the line, there may be other opportunities that come, in which case having that authority already dealt with would make some sense. So whether one were to pursue it for the reasons our colleague just mentioned, or if or whether there was just enough energy for state law to change, particularly for Clay County. I hope the reason that prompted this will come to fruition, but even if it doesn't, there may be a value to it. And so I would just suggest that there may be a value to it anyway and worthwhile to pursue. So
I have to say, I agree with your point on that, because it would be, should it not become necessary in the near future, having that would make us more marketable, for lack of a better way to put it. Commissioner Johnson.
I was just wondering if you, Commissioner, or someone else with more expertise on this can explain to those listening at home and those in the audience what exactly a county sports complex authority is.
I think what I'd like to do is, Mr. Counselor, since we are talking about legal definitions, if you could give us a thumbnail, and then perhaps we can get more detail on what exactly we would be asking for. So if you could do that, please.
Yeah, sure. Certainly, like Jackson County has, it's an entity. It's a separate entity that allows for the administration of the taxes, the authority itself. So many of the contracts would go through into the sports authority, and it's essentially, and sometimes it'll be a pass through. And it'll just essentially help administer the county's interaction with the ball club.
And am I right that the structure of these entities is pretty well outlined in state law?
In the current version, yeah. So I mean, obviously, if we are going to tinker with it, we might consider tinkering with our end of it as well. If we think there may be places that a sports authority could be improved upon, we'd want to look at that.
And that was kind of the meat of the question, was that we would have the ability to perhaps make changes in that if we thought it was a better fit for the county. To address Commissioner Withington's point, I think it's a strategic consideration, but generally speaking, it's a little bit easier to pass legislation that is relatively specific, because then we'd have to get buy-in from some of those other counties, and that may or may not complicate it, but that's a strategic decision to be made kind of as we progress, if that should be the case. Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. Just to add to the answer that Commissioner Johnson has asked, I would describe it as just having that arm's length separation, so that you have something that is the day-to-day operator, communicator, lease negotiator from the county. And for those who believe those sorts of things are important, then that's a value that a sports authority would bring. And I would also just make the notion that, again, just as another example, if for example, something were to happen at the 587 development that we've talked about, and although I don't know who has the money to shell out for it, but let's say, for example, someone decides that basketball's coming to this area, and here's a place we'll put an arena. Well, a sports authority could be able to do that kind of negotiation as well. So I would just characterize it as an entity that kind of keeps the county at arm's length, and to the extent that that's important, then that's the role that it can play. But my position would be, if we have the eligibility, if we're able to create one, we don't have to create one until we actually need to create one, but it would already be there and allow us to do that. So I don't know if that helps, but that's how I look at it.
And we are talking about enabling legislation. In other words, it would give us the authority to establish this entity. It would not put a requirement on us to establish that entity. Is that Commissioner Carpenter? You've obviously served in the legislature. Does that consistent with what your thought process is?
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me. We've not done a sports authority, not been involved in the creation of a sports authority, but if it calls for a public vote, then by all means, there would need to be a public vote. Yeah, I mean, look, I support having some version of this, of some kind in our final document. I think we ought to allow ourselves a little bit of flexibility. It's an ever-changing world in the realm of the need for a sports authority. And so I think we just sort of play this one by ear, and if it makes sense to pursue it in this upcoming legislative session, then I think we ought to pursue it.
Very good. Are there any more comments before I ask for a consensus? The consensus I get is that we should go forward with this and keep it on our agenda. Okay, that seems to be okay, and that completes the list as printed. Was there anything anyone wanted to bring up as a possible addition to that list? Commissioner Withington.
Yeah, so I would like to add 291 to that. I know 92 highway is important, but I think taking care of today's needs versus full generation's needs is also important. For example, 435 was built in the 70s. Twin Creeks didn't come online until 2014. There's no sewers. 92 highway doesn't have sewers. Roads don't necessarily generate economic growth if you don't have the sewers there. We already have a lot of residents around 291. And when I talk about 291, I'm talking about from here, 152, all the way to 169. It's a lot of it doesn't have streetlights. It's not safe at nighttime. It goes from 4 lanes to 2 lanes in areas. So I would like to see 291, the whole 291 corridor from Kansas/152 all the way to 169 added to that list.
I agree with you. I think that is a good way to put it. If I might suggest, when we compile the list, make it number 3A, 92 Highway, and number 3B, Highway 92, so that if one goes down, it doesn't take the other with it, so to speak.
Yeah.
But that's just a recommendation on my part. Commissioner Wagner, I believe you had some thoughts?
Yes, thank you. First, I would also agree with 291, and during my past public service, we tried through the Shoal Creek TIF to make some improvements, which we did at about that 104th area, but the grading is actually there to do that work along 291 further east of there, so I certainly would agree with that. On the infrastructure piece for a moment, I would ask, since I believe the next step for the 2935 split is the NEPA, I don't know if you recall, Administrator, I believe that is the next phase that they need funding for.
Down the NEPA, I thought that is land?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure, so we can check.
It was my understanding that it was not, but if it is, then just strike that from the list. But the reason I bring it up is that environmental review that comes after they have determined the alternatives, which, as many of you may know, there's 3 alternatives that they have that has been selected to move forward. And so this would be the next phase of that work, so that work at the split continues unabated. So if it has not been, I'd ask that be put on the list, and if it has been, then great, I'll save that split for the next time. 2 other things that I might ask is, and I'm not sure, and I'll throw these out there to just simply be thought about, since we may come back to this project or this discussion item, but as an adjunct to the ATA issue, there's not only an issue of governance, but I would add an issue of funding, particularly for us up here. And to that end, I'll explain it, I'll say it this way. I think, as everyone knows, both North Kansas City and Gladstone and I think to some extent Liberty, but maybe not as much, have had to find other options because of the position that the ATA took on the services that they gave those communities. And it strikes me that in order for them to get better service in the future, that there needs to be some thinking about how those funds can be pooled so that they can be seen as a larger customer as opposed to just themselves individually. And so I guess I'll put it this way, and I'll maybe rely on the county councilor's opinion as far as would a structure or should a structure be created that would allow an entity, perhaps the county, or it could be something else, but something that allows those municipalities to pool their funds together as a larger customer to therefore hopefully get superior pricing and service out of the ATA. And I pose the question, there's probably some thinking that needs to go to that, but it just strikes me that, especially with the tax that's being renewed next Tuesday, and it probably will be, Kansas City will still be the largest customer of the KCATA. And I'd like our communities here, whether they're in Clay County or for that matter in Platte County, to have an opportunity for better buying power to counter that, what seems to be going on. And I think that can be helpful to the issue of governance. But I think we have to be thinking about both governance and finance in order, I think, to get better service for our county. So that's number two. Number three, again, wanted to throw out there and perhaps maybe rendered moot in a couple of weeks, but as we've had discussions about our current taxing authority and what we have available to us, it strikes me that if there are things that we should be asking for as far as greater taxing authority for use down the line, now may be a good time to ask for that taxing authority. So I'll just leave it at that. Those are my three. There you go. Thank you.
Something, Commissioner Wagner, that I'd like to inquire of you on that, on the issue of the funding mechanism, this point two that you had, because we are talking about issues here that would require enabling legislation. Do you envision us making an ask as far as enabling legislation, or do you feel that we have the authority perhaps to go on our own on that, or is it yet to be seen?
Well, that's the question I pose. I mean, one could perhaps go so far as creating a Clay County Transit Authority that would on behalf of these communities, go into some sort of discussion with the ATA and work on those communities' behalf. I mean, you could go that far, or if it's sufficient to kind of have a gentleman's agreement that, yeah, whether it's us or some other entity, take the role to bargain on behalf of those entities, I guess you could do that. So I don't know that I have a great answer for you, because I think there's probably a spectrum to that answer. And again, that's why I look to I look to the county councilor maybe to give some advice. Well, and it doesn't have to be tonight, but just a thought to that.
I think it's good to make that inquiry, because there is the possibility that we could go beyond our borders and partner with other entities. That would, in my mind, more likely require enabling legislation. This, I'm not sure, but I think it's certainly worthy of some thought and some research.
Sure.
Is that?
It's good enough for
Oh,
me.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Lawson, were you wanting to comment on this point, or do you have a new one?
This one, you know.
Hold on a second. Okay, you're.
I did something wrong.
That's okay.
Yeah,
Now
there you
you're.
go. Okay, the only thing I was thinking about was today when we were at the dedication of that new off-ramp there in
19th Street.
Yeah, in Kearney, they talked about all this new money coming in to the state they're talking about I-70 and, you know, all that. Can we put something in there? I know that the state gets a lot of money from the feds, and I don't know that we get our fair share. So is there a way that we can put something in here to say that, you know, we've got like 291 that you all are talking about and some of the others? Let's ask them for some money so we can get that stuff done.
I think that that's kind of, I don't know about implied, but in my mind, it's understood that when we make these asks for 92, for 291 and those others, that will be where, I don't mean to be completely mercenary about it, but I'm less interested in where the money comes from, as long as it's legally. What I'm interested in is those funds go towards the betterment of the transportation system for our citizens. That's really where I'm at, and I think that's a good point. That is one of the issues, and you know, some of that money is time sensitive and must be expended. So I'm hoping that we can appeal on that basis, if nothing else. So you're totally right. Yeah.
And how do we, the county, so can we get state funds that say, okay, here's $1 million, and this goes into your road fund, and then we can start blacktopping the whole place?
I'm not sure about that. The thing is, we're going to have to make sure the ask we make is tailored to what is doable, and that was part of some of you know, some inquiries that were made during veto session when we had the entire legislature in session. And these are ongoing discussions with our legislative delegation. So I think part of it is going to see what is possible and catch as much the lowest hanging fruit we can possibly manage to make sure that we get these funds in to benefit our citizens.
I think, you know, we add it to the list and ask for it. All they can do is say no. You know, we haven't got the funds to allocate, but at least we're asking.
I've heard no before. I don't mind hearing it again, but I prefer yes.
Yeah.
Commissioner Withington?
I just have a question for Commissioner Wagner.
Hold on, let me go and get you my Commissioner Wagner. There you go.
So were you talking about us being able to pool money and get a better deal with Ride KC? Or were you talking about creating something like the Joe that Johnson County used to have?
Sure. I think more towards the first, but could lead to the second.
Okay.
So,
I just wanted to make sure I was...
Yeah, no, but I think the idea is simply, can you create, is there something that can bargain on behalf of our smaller municipalities that can either, which could mean that you bargain directly with the ATA for that service, or like in the case of Johnson County, I mean, you could conceivably put it out to bid, but the idea is, and since we don't have a county means of collecting funds for transit, right? What I'm basically suggesting at this point is there at least a way that we can bargain, whether it's us, the county, or some other entity, so that Gladstone's not bargaining on its own, North Kansas City's not bargaining on its own, Liberty isn't bargaining on its own, so on and so forth. So that there is, so that you can bargain with a transit entity, but it doesn't have to be the AT. I mean, you can, but I think what we're seeing is that when they are so small in and of themselves compared to Kansas City, Missouri, I think we see who's winning that battle, right? And so again, the question I pose is just simply, does that have to be something that gets created? Or is there just a gentleman's agreement that says somebody's going to bargain on behalf of those municipalities? And I'm okay with whatever that is, but it just seems like we're having a governance conversation, which is very important, but there's also a finance conversation that I think is equally as important.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that clarification. We got to do something because there's a lot of people southwest Clay County that rely on that bus service, and especially on North Oak.
Right.
I mean, maybe we need something like the Max, on North Oak. So, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Carpenter, I believe you want to join the discussion?
Well, I thought I would just jump in since we've started talking about KCATA stuff. Look, I in terms of who's winning and losing, I who's losing are the folks that relied on the bus service who now no longer get it, both in Northtown and in Gladstone. You know, if there is some mechanism by which state statute can help get some kind of combination better deal, then I certainly have an open mind. I will just say, we're talking about a few $100,000. And we've now ended up in a system that's just this terribly inefficient system in which the buses just sort of just go past the stops, if I understand things correctly. They just drive through Gladstone, they just drive through Northtown, which seems like, and there's been all of this sort of political drama created by it. I guess I'm just really disappointed by all of it. I think it's so unnecessary, especially at the financial amounts that we're talking. So I will simply say, if we're looking for a financial solution, I certainly think it makes sense to ask the state if there are, you know, funds to pull from the state to just help in the situation. And alternatively, if not, you know, I think that's a discussion we can have as a county commission too, partnering with Gladstone and North Kansas City to you know, help them make those payments. Because my understanding is, and you know, I haven't done a deep dive into the books on this issue, but my understanding is that Kansas City and the ATA, you know, state that it costs X number of dollars to provide public transportation service to the 25,000 residents of Gladstone and the 5,000 residents of North Kansas City, and that this is a sort of a fair market value of what it costs. Again, it's not an overwhelmingly big number. I'm real disappointed that a deal couldn't be arrived at by the parties involved. The people that suffer as a result of the failure of that situation tend to be lower income folks who were relying on those buses over the course of years to get where they need to go, which can often include things like healthcare or their job. So I do want us to have a solution to that, and if the commission has an open mind, you know, I certainly think financially we could make that happen if we commit ourselves to it. But, you know, as was mentioned, we have this tax renewal coming up. The citizens of Kansas City, you know, are going to pay that tax for years to come, and that tax will help fund public transportation. And it makes sense to me that everybody should financially contribute to help make sure that everybody has public transportation service. So I will have an open mind if county councilor comes up with some answer to the question in terms of pooling together and getting a better deal. But it strikes me that it isn't primarily a matter of that it's a bad deal on the table. It's just that it costs X number of dollars to provide the service. And Kansas City wants to recoup, you know, the fair amount of money that it costs to provide the service. If for whatever reason Northtown and Gladstone can't do it, then I do think the county could play a role in that. Certainly would benefit a lot of folks who have gotten the short end of the stick out of all this. So I don't know how it will all fit into this legislative package that we're talking about here. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Like I said, county council, sounds like you've got a new assignment, but more broadly speaking, I think we could also play a role as a county commission in fixing it directly without even needing to go to the state if we so choose.
Okay. Am I right? Let me kind of circle back on that. It seems to me that maybe one of the things we're looking at is basically we need some more exploration as to whether or not we require legislative action on this particular item. Absolutely worthy of discussion, but if it turns out does not require legislative action, then it's certainly, while a discussion item we need to explore, does not necessarily belong on this list, because this is, as stated, the purpose of this document will be to express to our legislative delegation and anyone else who will listen to us what it is we as a county feel we need. So I guess what I'm going to say is I think we should keep what's been suggested in play, pending more information. I realize that what we're giving staff and council is a somewhat nebulous concept. The others are obviously been more discussed. So is there any question you have? I mean, we're like I say, we're kind of just throwing some stuff out there, and I realize that makes it a little bit more difficult for you. The other thing that we need to be thinking about is it would be nice to put this legislative agenda forward, I guess ideally prior to December 1st pre-filings, but certainly before the session begins in January. So I guess that's what I'm asking, is just if you could kind of distill what we've expressed into what is and is not doable, and if you have any questions, I mean, certainly we'd hear them now, but since it's just been thrown at you, maybe having the ability to circle around to any commissioners who had expressed particular interest in any of these issues might not be the worst idea. Ms. Administrator, you were wanting to say something?
Yeah, I just think certainly we heard some of the things that are in the draft. We've heard some discussion, and I think some of that needs to be tweaked a little. We certainly heard some additions, especially when it came to infrastructure. And I think, taxing authority, I think there's some things we could work with that. I think one of the things that's going to take us a little bit more work is the financial piece of the ATA service. So we'll let us noodle on that and kind of maybe work on that and come back, because again, we're talking, we have some months before we can bring it, and we'll bring it back for another discussion item.
So maybe make that a freestanding, because it does require a good deal more research than most of the rest of the issues that we talked about. And so if Commissioner Wagner, if you think that's acceptable.
If that needs to be a dangling participle that we get to down the road, that's totally fine. Again, I know I'm throwing out an idea that has a lot of work and some working parts to it that may or may not make sense in this way. So totally fine if you come back and say, let's get these others out there officially and let's come back to this, totally fine. I just appreciate the discussion. Thank you.
Were there any other of the issues that we discussed, Administrator, that caused you any need for clarification? Or do you feel like with the exception of that particular issue, we're giving you sufficient guidance?
I mean, I believe so. I think, we certainly, good discussion and clarifying on the marijuana tax, and I'm certainly clear about not stacking, but trying to get some clarification. Also on the sports authority, I think we had it drafted, but we probably didn't include first-class counties. I think we talked about charter counties. And so we'll do some, wordsmithing a little bit from your discussion this evening and bring those items back along with the new items that you've mentioned this evening.
So is the commission satisfied? Do we have consensus moving forward on that basis? Very well. I see head nods all the way around. So thank you very much, and hope we didn't throw too many curves at you. Okay. That concludes our discussion on the legislative priorities. That brings us to our third and final discussion item. That would be roads, and that would be if Commissioner Lawson, if you would like to open the discussion on that, I'll get your microphone on.
I certainly would, and thank you very much. I have some information I just want to share, and then I know that there's some other commissioners that would like to put their 2 cents in worth it as well.
Oh, by the way, Commissioner, before you get started, if this is okay, what I'd like to do is go ahead and have the commissioner discussion go forward, and then I'd like to have if there are citizens here who would like to comment, then come up and say something. So if that structure sounds like it's okay with everybody, we'll just kind of follow that as a general guideline. Thank you.
That's fine. Okay, so the majority, as with all of us, the majority of calls I receive are from citizens that are very upset about road maintenance. So what I do is, the minute I get something from somebody that tells me, I'm unhappy with my road, it's been a long while since it's been fixed, whatever, I drive the road. And I can't tell you how many miles I put on my car. So going out there and looking, I'm a little unhappy. But I'm sure we can get this resolved. I'll give you a good example. Let's take 132nd off of Stark. That was a chip and seal. I talked to the gentleman that lives on that road. It was a chip and seal road for 27 years. Then there was a bypass. There was some work that was done, and 132nd took the brunt when Stark was closed, and that people were going over that way and then coming back around. So when that happened, of course, the whole road took a toll, and it looked pretty bad. And so what was done then, and I don't know all the steps on this, but they put gravel on the road, which I guess that maybe was to protect. I don't know why it was done, but that was the way it was done. So that was in '22. So then in April, I got the information that, you know, the road wasn't in good shape and they were very unhappy. And I went to Diana, as I always do, and, you know, there were emails sent out, went through all that. About the beginning of last month, they started working on it.
I'm sorry,
We started working
Thank you.
on the road. I assume it was us. I don't know that it wasn't one of our contractors. It could have been. But the bottom line is, it's us. So the county was seeing that the road was being fixed. The people were elated. And a couple of weeks later, I got a call and said, thank you very much for all that you've done. The road is great. 2 weeks later, I get a call saying, whoops, I may have acted too quickly there. This thing is a disaster. So me and my trusty car went back out and drove it. It was a washboard, both ways, whether you're coming or going on Stark. It was bad road conditions. There had been some gravel on it, and like I jokingly said to the taxpayer, I drove my clean car over there, and it wasn't clean when I came back. And like I say, the washboarding was severe. So my thought on that immediately was, now wait a minute. We spent good money out there to get it started, and now, I don't know, at the time, it wasn't rainy or anything, but because of scheduling or whatever it might have been, it didn't get completed as we all would have thought it was. And so now we're going to have to go back. We can't just go over the washboarding, I don't assume. It's got to be redone and now put everything down. Now we're in the cold weather. Does the chip and seal work in the cold weather? I don't know, but that's a question to be asked. So, you know, when you look at this is one of many. We've got 184th that we had to go through hell and back to get it taken care of. I guess we look at all this and say, why did this road get done? Why didn't this road get done? A lot more houses here than fewer houses there. You can attribute that to lack of funds, and we do, and we should. You know, we aren't overly wealthy, but we're trying to manage our money to the best of our ability. Sometimes I think in departments, as in businesses, people say, well, oh my God, I can't afford to give a raise, I can't afford to do this or that. And yet you'll see all new furniture in the building, and you're saying, well, if you hadn't bought that new furniture, you could have done this for the employees, or, you know, whatever it is. I think we have to learn to be cautious in the way we spend money. You know, a lot of times I'd like to go buy steak, I buy hamburger. So I think you have to take that same mindset and bring it into whatever department it might be. And I just think, you know, we look at something, here's a real good thing that just blew my mind. I did some calling around. I find out that a mile of asphalt costs $102,800 and some dollars. A mile of chip and seal costs $25,800. So you could do 4 roads, a mile of 4 roads, for what you do 1 asphalt. And maybe that's the focus that you do. You say, well, I wish I could do all of them asphalt, but instead, you know, let's do these few chip and seal. So I guess one of the examples, and Diane and I had a conversation, and maybe I understand a little better why, but you take Petty Road. I sat on Petty Road one day. around a little before 5 o'clock, and I stayed there till 6 o'clock. There were like 3 or 4 cars that went up that road. Now, maybe sometimes it's a bigger traffic, but that is a road we asphalted. It's beautiful, beautiful to drive, but there's not a damn house on that road other than a farm, and that's it. So you wonder in your mind, why did we asphalt? Why didn't we chip and seal that and then use some of that extra money for 184th, Stark Road, whatever it might be? Anyway, I guess that I feel I'm not getting the information I want. Commissioner Withington had asked for some information at the beginning of our term. We still haven't gotten it. I had asked that I didn't ask, I was told that a count was going to be done on 184th. I never got that information back. It would have been a nice, even though I didn't know what the heck I was seeing, it would have been a courtesy in my thoughts that I was given that information. I never was. So I just feel like I take all the heat from my constituents, and I'm always happy to take it. I ask for the job, and I'm going to do it. But the bottom line is I feel their pain, and I feel like, darn it, I can't do anything about it. So I'm a little frustrated. Last week we talked about core values, integrity, customer service, accountability. All of those things play into what we're seeing out there on those roads. You need to be out there driving the roads if you're the head of that department, and making sure that the guys that are doing the road work, if it is our contractors, that they're doing the darn thing right. And if it's our own people, put a boot up their fanny if they're not. We've got to start being accountable, and we've got to provide customer service. Every company that doesn't provide service fails. That's the biggest key, is keeping people happy. Our customer service is to our taxpayers. To a man, every individual that I have spoken with about the roads, I have always had them, referred them to have you called the Highway Department. Everyone has told me that they were treated rudely. I find that hard to believe, but that's what they're telling me. So that's my take on it. I'm frustrated. I want things to be right. I want to support the people that do this road work for us, but I also feel that I have my first top priority is to the people that pay everyone's salary in this county, and that's our taxpayers. So with that, I'll shut up and let anybody else that wishes to speak.
I do want to address a couple of the points you made. One is that when we are looking at road construction, clearly we need to also be considering the maintenance schedule and the rest of that. So it is a package deal. The other has to do with staff. I've not had the experience where I've had a universal criticism of the staff. My experience with my constituents that I've spoken to is, while there's always a mix, has been generally positive with the way they've been treated. So I do not share your experience on that particular issue. Not to say that your experience is not valid. I'm just saying my experience has been different. With that, Commissioner Withington, I think you were looking for recognition.
Yeah, so several months ago, I brought up starting an infrastructure committee on this commission. I would like to renew that request. Since becoming a commissioner, even before I got elected, or even before I took office, after I got elected, I asked Carl for a road plan. He said there was one. He said he'd give it to me when I got elected and took office. Here we are, 11 months in, still don't have a road plan. I requested a road plan be included in this year's budget. It's my understanding that it'd be a 5-year plan instead of a 10-year plan, but the buck stops with us. We don't have any say over personnel or anything like that. But we are the ones who are the leaders of this county. We are the ones at the top of the organization chart, right underneath the citizens. We need to make sure that this commission is showing leadership when it comes to our roads. So I'm going to renew my request that we create a county county commission infrastructure committee to make sure that this road plan gets implemented. I mean, you know, putting a bunch of roads on a piece of paper, that's all it is. We need to make sure that it, you know, we get it implemented and everything. And, you know, another thing, we need to make sure that we're actually applying for federal funds through MARC, Mid-America Regional Council. We're not getting our fair share. I can't even tell you the last time the county submitted a project to MARC. I asked that question, and the highway said it was several years ago. Talking to the current treasurer of MARC, which is Smithville Mayor Damon Boley, he can't even tell you the last time Clay County submitted a project for funding to MARC. And he shared with me today that MARC's resurfacing project fund came in $1 million under budget. We have 0 projects on that list that could be considered because we submitted none. That's $1 million of resurfacing that, you know, that we could potentially have gotten some money for. So this county needs to do a better job at trying to get other resources. But I think it's time that this commission demonstrates some leadership. I think it's time that this commission takes a more hands-on approach to our infrastructure. And like I said, I'm going to renew my request that this commission create a infrastructure committee.
Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. So a couple things. One is, you know, there's a difference in my mind of what you might call routine maintenance, fill a pothole here, fill a pothole there, and actually going kind of down the road that our colleague Commissioner Lawson has talked about, the idea of decisions of chip and seal versus asphalt and so on. And one of the things that I guess I'm hopeful that as we look at this 5-year plan is that there's something that tells us of condition, because without knowledge of condition of roads, then one can make any decision about roads and you'll always be right or you'll always be wrong. But I think something that suggests condition is vitally important to understanding the question that's been brought before us and the question that's been brought to us by the public. So I'm going to set that aside for a moment and get to what I feel is the real nitty-gritty of this, which, and I should say, there's not a single county road in the western district of this county. And am I correct about that? Yes, my colleague, good, because I really wanted to be right on that one, right? So we don't see that benefit at all. But what I will say, and what I do notice, is how we do our financing also helps put us in this hole. Because when we go out to bid, we bid when our those contractors are already full. And so we get the worst price, we get put at the end of the line, and we get these issues that are brought before us. Hopefully I'm not saying anything out of turn. We're going to the administrator making sure I'm right about this, because we don't forward money to be able to go out to bid. We can't go out to bid unless we have the money. We don't have the money because we generally don't have a reserve. That reserve is spent, and so we are told that there's no money available, and therefore we can't go out to bid, so we get the worst pricing. My suggestion would be, if I am correct on these, if I'm correct in how I look at that, is that as we look at this next budget, or subsequent budgets, that we put a little bit of an eye towards how we treat reserves. So that if we want to start bidding projects at the earliest opportunity we can, when those folks are still hungry. Because I don't know about you, but whenever I've bid anything, whether it's been in government or personally, if I've got someone who's hungry, they give me a good price. If they're not, they give me the worst price I can possibly get, right? So I would just submit to us that this is not only a road issue, it is a finance issue. And to the extent that we can put staff in the better position to get the best pricing, I'm not going to say it's going to solve all of our problems, but I do believe that it gets us in a better position to do more when it's warmer, and hopefully get a lot more done. And if I've said anything incorrectly, the county administrator will correct me, but that's my story and I'm sticking to it. Thank you
Not
very
that
much.
I enjoy correcting Commissioner Wagner, but just for clarification. So recently, what we have started doing, because you're right about the pricing, right? You don't want to be last at the well. And so we have started partnering in sort of a consortium of putting our amount in with others like Platte County when they go out to bid for their asphalt. So we're trying to do things to be creative the last year or so to get a better pricing. But the challenge is with us, and you are absolutely correct, because what funds our program is pretty much our sales tax, and that revenue comes in on a monthly basis. So until we build up, which is basically towards the middle or the end of the year, the last quarter, do we have the cash to actually award that contract and have the funding to pay for that contract? And then we run into the challenge of cold weather gets here before our program may or may not get done. And I'm certainly not here tonight to make excuses. I think there are things that we are trying to do things better from an economic standpoint, and also from a quality assurance, whether it's our own staff or whether it's our contractors doing work on behalf of the county.
And I appreciate that, and I'm glad to hear that we're trying to do some things to get around the problem. Last thing I'll say is simply when we think or when we have opportunity of one-time revenue, however that comes and whatever form that comes, I would just submit that socking it away in the piggy bank for a short time to allow us the opportunity to get ahead on bidding is not a bad idea. And whenever that comes, I'll probably say it again, but I'll just plant that seed here. And again, thank you for letting me go on my diatribe.
Commissioner Carpenter.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to say I fully support Commissioner Withington's idea to form an infrastructure committee. Sounds like it'd be an easy enough thing to do. I assume you envision it as being made up of perhaps 3 commissioners. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I'd like to see probably one western, 2 eastern.
Right. I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me. Could put you on there and a couple of our wonderful Eastern colleagues as well. And I think you guys could really, to use a phrase from earlier, drill down into the details of some of the concepts that Commissioner Wagner just mentioned, for example. I think ultimately the biggest driver is a finance piece, and if there are more efficient ways to get better deals through the bidding process, and if that means getting some reserves, then by all means that should be a thing that we should explore, and I'm grateful to hear that we've already made some progress on that front. But it's the biggest thing is a revenue piece. It's expensive to do infrastructure, and so I'll just take this opportunity to sort of remind everybody that the ledger has 2 sides to it. It has the spending and it has the revenue. And when we have discussions, not this evening, but on other occasions with regard to the revenue piece, that's what's going to really make the biggest difference as to whether or not we have the money to fund these projects. And so when we have discussions around various tax policy, and it could also be things like fees and other things, we should try to remember to tie the 2 things together, because the sentiment of not wanting to pay taxes, which I wholeheartedly share, can often run counter to the sentiment of wanting more revenue available to do things like get the roads up to high quality. And I've mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again. One of the ways we could get some reserve funds built up, the county administrator just mentioned that we rely on sales tax. Sales tax comes in on a monthly basis and has various other limitations. One of the ways we could do it is by looking at the road and bridge levy. We don't currently generate a lot of money through a direct levy on roads and bridges, but I think we do have that as an option should we want to pursue it at some point in the future. Obviously, that would require buy-in from folks on the commission and from the public to get that done. But it would be a way to generate a new source of revenue for county infrastructure, and it would also sort of be an alternative to just relying on sales tax for everything. So if and when that discussion feels ripe, it could be a way to really make a big improvement on this issue.
Before I go to Commissioner Johnson, I just want to say that we've often said that it would be better for government to run more like a business. We are not a business. We're not going to go out of business because we do not perform up to a certain standard. However, the discussion being made on building up reserves, those are business principles I think that we would do well to look closely at and adopt once we've reached a consensus on that particular point. But I think this is an example where a more business-like attitude by government might indeed be our better route. Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you, sir. So a couple of comments. First of all, to any citizen out there who has any complaints whatsoever about our roadways, please go to our county website and report that. There's a place on there you can click on Report a Concern. That logs it, that tracks it, where the concern is, where it is, when you made the complaint. Don't think that we have staff out there working all the roadways every day trying to look for potholes to fill them. It's not like that. If you see a pothole, you see an issue with the roadway, you see deterioration, you see problems, whatever it is, please report it on our website. It gets logged right away. Just so you know, I had someone do that for me because I didn't want it in my name, but I wanted to track to see what took place, and someone reported some potholes, and it was within the week they were filled. So that does get checked. They're getting taken care of. When they can, in order of when they're received and priority, that kind of stuff. But so please do that. And then also, I don't want to reiterate too much of what Commissioner Carpenter said, but I agree with a lot with what he said. You know, I guess to back it up, almost all of us on the commission to a T, there may be one or two exceptions, but we all, when we ran for office, everyone pushes out these little push cards or palm cards that we all pass out. Hey, vote for me. This is what I stand for. Just about every single one of us had both public safety on there and infrastructure, roads and bridges. Those are important things to us. We have to remember that's what we ran on. I remember that's what I ran on, and so I'm going to make a difference with that. And I know Commissioner Whittington is really passionate about this, as is. Actually, I think all the commissioners are, but I know Whittington and Lawson are really pushing for this, and I agree. We need to do something. We need to do something different. We need to find out ways to fix this problem. Part of the problem, I think, is communication. I think we can communicate better to our citizens on what we're doing. I think the new website actually is helpful. But this 5-year plan and being able to communicate a 5-year plan, which I know that they're working on, hopefully we'll see something come up at the beginning of next year with this, which I think will be great. Let the citizens know, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what you can expect over the next 5 years. I'd love to see something interactive on the website where citizens can go to and say, hey, here's my street, where does it fall in priority or severity, and when can I expect it to be done? That'd be great. So I'd know, hey, you know what? I got 6 months to go on this street, and it's going to get fixed before it gets replaced or whatever. So I think that'd be great, communicating with our citizens what we're doing, why we're doing it. What's chip and seal versus asphalt? Why do we do chip and seal versus asphalt? What that process is? A lot of it's just communication. A lot of people don't understand that. I was very ignorant of it myself before I got on the commission a little more. But to Commissioner Carpenter's point, just about everything comes back to money, and roadways cost a lot of money. Nobody wants to tax, and I'm super conservative when it comes to finances and fiscal conservative, but people have to understand, taxpayers have to understand, we want these things and they cost money. We pay a lot of taxes, the community pays a lot of taxes, but you'd be surprised how little, when you look at your property tax bill, you'd be surprised how little comes to the county. I mean, very little. I'll give you an example. My tax bill was over $8,000. My property tax bill was over $8,000. I think it was $176 comes to the county. That's for the sheriff's department that's for our roadways. That's how small it comes back to the county. People don't realize that. Most of it will go to your school district and various other places. And you'll look at some of the different taxing authorities on your schedule. Although we collect it, we're not the ones that get to spend it. We collect it just for all these other authorities that have these taxing authorities, such as schools and other places. For example, of that 170-something came back to the county, over 6,000 of it went back to the Liberty School District. That doesn't come to us. I know citizens are paying it, but that doesn't pay for bridges. That doesn't pay for roadways. That doesn't pay for your sheriff's department. That doesn't pay for those things. So people have to understand that, and we have to figure out ways around that, how to make that work. There's two sides of the ledger. And we certainly don't want to raise taxes if we don't have to. We have to figure out, where do we get that money from? An example, next Tuesday, there's an election. Prop A is on the ballot. That's that 911 user fee where we transfer the user fee from the landline phones to the cell phones. Right now, our 911 system, we have to take about $850,000 this year from other places because that is underfunded. Because we no longer get those fees from landline phones because everyone's on cell phone, and we were late in the game in transferring that over to cell phones. We need for that to pass, and that $850,000 that we're stealing from Peter to pay Paul, we can put that back where it belongs in places like roads and bridges. Those are the kind of things that we need to look at, and Commissioner Withington's idea of having some kind of committee, some kind of commission, whatever you call it, to look at this, to look at ideas, I think there's some real merit in that. I think we need to look at things differently. We can't keep doing things the same way. We need to look at things differently, get some different people's ideas, both on funding sources, on just how we do this. How can we do better? How can we serve our citizens better? How can we give them that, I call it this Nordstrom service, you know? We need to treat our customers like customers, treat our taxpayers like customers, and how could we be better to our customers? And sometimes we need to get a group of people together to think outside the box and other alternatives. And I think we can get there. I think we can do that, but we just have to have the desire to do that. And like I said, I think there's some merit to what Commissioner Withington is talking about, and hopefully the folks that work in the highway department, I'm sure they do, as well as our county administrator, realize this is the direction that we want to go. Let us know what we can do to support that, what you need from us. But this is the direction where we want to go as a county, and we want to be known for, hey, you know what? Go to Clay County, you're going to be riding on some nice roads over there. And I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Commissioner Lawson, you are the only person in the queue. What I'd like to do is, certainly at the end of the discussion, we'll go to you for closure since you're subject, but with your permission, I'd like to go ahead and have any citizens, and then we'll go to you, unless there's another commissioner who likes to comment. But would and members of the public who have joined us this evening, and I apologize for the long evening, if you'd like to weigh in, please come up to the podium, make sure the green light is on, identify yourself, and make your comment, please.
My name is Lee Mullinex. I live in northern Clay County up here. I've been up there I've lived in Clay County for 40 years now, but I built a new house up here and moved in it. I've been up there for 28 years. I've got a few questions. Can I ask questions to you?
Yes, because this is not a discussion item, we can interact with you at this point, so please feel free.
I understand that money is a big, for everybody, including me. But, you know, if roads are being paved, asphalt paved throughout the county, and they do part of them, they don't do the other one, number one, I'd like to know who sets the priority to what ones get paved. Number two is, I've been complaining about that road that I live on, which is 184th, Lancaster, 190th Street, for 2 years. I've been up there for 28 years. That road has never been asphalt paved since I've been there. They've paved the roads all around it, all on the west side of 33 Highway. Come right across the highway, went down 184th Street. Who sets the priority of how the road gets paved? Now, if you're going to tell me that, well, it's traffic and it's how bad the road is on it, they did not drive down that road. That's all I got to say, because that was one of the worst roads that was up there. Second question is this is my opinion. Whoever's in charge of the roads needs to have an overseer. somebody to go out and check to see that it's done right. Because when you do something and you do it wrong or halfways on it, you got to do it again. But when you go back and do it again, you're wasting money. And there's a few things that's been done up there, wasn't done right, and they had to go back and redo them. So, as he says, there needs to be an overseer, somebody that can go up there and look at it and say, well, this is screwed up. You shouldn't have done it like this. Or while they're doing it, I hauled asphalt for about 15 years. So I know, like, I can't even, Vance Brothers. They have somebody out there patrolling the pavers. If it's wrong or screwed up, they go back and they redo it. If it's supposed to be 4 inches of asphalt, they bore a hole and take a plug out of it to check it. Do the roads up here, nobody checks anything. They just do it, they're done with it, and they're gone. And like I said, there's a few roads up there that you can drive if you want to that's been done that's just not right. Another thing is 184th Street, Lancaster, 190th Street. That's the last road in Clay County north that goes across the freeway. It's a busy road. It's not just a regular road like, I don't know, like Ms. Lawson said, they were supposed to put a counter on it. I don't know if they did. I never seen it to see what the traffic flow was on it. But I don't quite understand how they set a priority to do one road, go out around another one, and continue on the other side. I've asked a few times, and I've never got an answer for that. Why was this road skipped when you done all the rest of them? So, like you said, communication. I like communication. I don't know is not an answer to me. I owned my own business for 27 years. Somebody come up and asked me something and I didn't know the answer. It wasn't, I don't know. I'll find out and get back with you. So here we are. I shouldn't be up here complaining about this. I brought 26 people with me last time I was up here. They all live on that road. And I'm the only one here now, but I'm here for all the rest of the people too, not just for me. That road is a mess up there. They went up there and they filled up the holes. But what it needs to be done right now, being the hole's been filled up in it, and they done a halfway good job. They didn't get all the holes. There's still holes in it right now. But it needs to be asphalted over the top of it right now that they've got all of the holes filled up. That road would last for probably 5 or 6 years or even more. Chip and seal's not going to last that long. It never does. So.
Before you go, I think, I don't mean to interrupt you, but don't rush off because I believe there's one commissioner who would like to continue the discussion with you, I'm assuming.
Sure, absolutely.
But so I didn't want to interrupt you, but I wanted to make you aware so you wouldn't have to go back.
No, that's fine. I'm here for the night if you need me. I'll be here longer than you guys want to be.
If you're ready, I'll go ahead and recognize the commissioner who I believe is wanting to inquire. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, sir. A couple things. First of all, yeah, this is exactly, what you're saying is exactly what I'm talking about. There's a lot of communication. You talked about why is this road done and not this other road? What's the priority? There is an answer to that. There's actually a very specific way that these roads are, the way it's explained to me. And I can't explain it as well as it's been explained to me, but there is a very specific answer to that. There's a reasoning behind all this, but the breakdown is you don't know that. And we don't tell you that. And that's why I think the problem is. When I was a department, and I don't mean to be critical of any department heads, but when I was a department head, if anybody came that had to do with my department, with law enforcement, as a police chief, anybody came before my city council, I was not happy. I thought, okay, where did I go wrong? Why do they have to go above my head to talk to the city council? And the first thing I do is I grab that person, walk them outside, and say, hey, what can I do to help? How can I fix your problem? Those are the kind of things that we need to do. That's the kind of service that we need to have in this county. We need to get to the point where, you know what, this can be taken care of before you even have to get to this level. This is, what, your third Thursday night you've been here with us, I think? 4th. Thursday night, you've been here with us?
Yes, sir.
That's not right. That's wrong. That should not happen, period. And I apologize for that, but we need to figure out a way, why is this happening? Why are you not getting this information? And as a county, we need to fix that. This is the problem, one of the problems, this communication. He should be able to know, just like we know here, what's a priority, why is his road not getting fixed, and why is this road getting fixed? Why is there a road with no houses on it being re-asphalted? And it certainly is the answer. I mean, that comes up a lot, and I tell people, well, it doesn't necessarily matter if there's houses on it or not. You know, we can say I-35 doesn't have any houses on it either. It doesn't mean we're not going to asphalt it. We don't do that. But nonetheless, there's reasons why we asphalt roads with no houses on it. Very good reasons why. But you don't know that because we don't tell you that. And that's where we have to get better. We have to do better as a county with our communication to our customers, to keep our customers happy, to keep our loyal paying, tax-paying customers happy. And that's where we got to fix the system somehow. And I don't know, again, it goes back to we need to do something as get some kind of committee or something going that we can actually, what do we need to do? You know, include the county administrator, maybe some department head or something, but how can we make this better so we don't have people coming back to here and complaining about things? This should be something that should be handled. By the way, you talked about a process. Who's checking the work out there? There is a process out there, but you don't know that process. Wouldn't that be nice if we just had that whole process online? Hey, this is how we do this. This is how we fix your roads, and this is how we check to make sure it was fixed right. Because there is a process, believe it or not. Sometimes it might not work as well as we'd like it to, but there is a process of checks and balances that our highway department has. But you don't know that because we don't do a good job of telling you that. So I'm with you. We need to fix these things. We need to fix the communication amongst other things. But you're right. You need some answers. There's no reason for you or anybody else to come back to a meeting 4 times with the same questions and not get answers. I just got another text a little while ago from somebody else on a different topic of, hey, no one's answering my questions. You know, where I came from, we had 24 hours.
Yeah.
We had 24 hours to answer a constituent. If we got a phone call, we got an email, we had 24 hours to call him or email him back with either an answer or, hey, I will get you, like you said, I will find you an answer and get back to you.
Right.
We need to fix that.
Well, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Is your budget for the county, the whole county, is it yearly? You set your budget up?
Yeah, we set our budget yearly. I mean, we can adjust it throughout the year, but normally
Okay.
we set it yearly.
If you pave a certain amount of roads in a certain area, is it on? Okay.
You're on.
A certain area, you run out of money, don't have money to go ahead and do it, like my road. How about going back the next year and doing that one road? Put it in the budget for the next year. You don't have to do it all at one time. But like I said, I've been here 28 years. It's never been done.
Right. And that's where this 5-year plan that they're working on now will come into play. Did you want to comment on that, Diana?
Right, so just a couple things, we keep referring to that and talking about the budget process, so I wanted to let Mr. Molnix know. That date it's scheduled is December 13th at 9:30 here in the chambers. So there'll be a large presentation about the road program, how roads are picked, how they're prioritized, what their ratings are. So I think you'll find that very beneficial, and again, the outcome of that, when more information will be on the website. I also want to make sure before Mr. Molnix leaves that we touch base with him, make sure we have his email address, because we did forward an email with information about his road status.
Good.
And so if he doesn't have that, then we may have his email address incorrect.
Good. Good to know. All right, okay.
Commissioner Lawson.
Yeah, here's the thing. It's not only, it's not just when that road gets fixed. It's when these people call, if they call me, I do everything I can to try to get it fixed, other than going out there myself and start slapping the asphalt down on the road, which I'll never be able to do. I would if I could. But that's the whole thing. And it's quality. You're right about that, because earlier in the year, when you and I first spoke, and I brought it up. I got a call back from him and said, well, they've done some patching, but when I went out, it was like this hole was patched and this hole wasn't. Now, they could have run out of product. So, but it was days before that happened. That same thing happened on my road. They came up the road. I didn't ask for it because I thought, no, somebody will kill me. Commissioner asked for the road to be fixed. But they did it, and this hole would be fixed, this hole would be fixed, this hole would be left. And I thought, they'll be back. They never came back. Now, that was probably, earlier in the year. Now, all of those holes that started are back, and they're back worse than they were before. So it really is the quality, not just to fix it, but the quality. And one thing I'd like to see is, what the heck do we need to do to apply for this money? Is there a time frame when we can do that? Is the time frame passed? We've missed it. Will they come again? When does that happen?
Commissioner, do you want me to activate your microphone?
I'm sorry, yeah.
Commissioner Wagner,
There you go.
so I'm not on that Mark committee. I know you used to be involved with Mark. Do you know what the timetables are?
If I
You're
may.
activated.
Yeah, so, I mean, generally, this is a year-long process, from the point of application to the point where it goes through and to ultimately be voted on, in this case, by the MARC board. So if you look at it, your window is essentially from March to October. The issue sometimes is the application itself and how it's scored. So part of our problem, and again, I'll look to the administrator to see if she'll check my work, is simply as you do those applications, there are various categories and points associated with those categories. One of the things that they talk about is the amount of traffic that it gets. Is there matching funds available? Which generally, on just those 2 points alone, our traffic numbers aren't as high as others, and we generally don't have dollars to throw in as matching funds. So I am interested to, and I will follow up as far as what has not been allocated, because that does happen. But those 2 items that I mentioned are usually part of the reason why we don't put in, because there's usually other communities who come in higher because of those higher traffics and matching funds, and I don't know.
Okay, so wait a
Administrator,
minute.
yeah.
It is not by it is by project, not by county.
Correct. You are going to put in a project generally, and whatever that project is, you're going to go through the process of costing it out. You'll put in traffic counts, and it goes back to how they view what you put in. So if you've got a higher trafficked area, you go higher on the list. If you've got funds that are going to be matched in some way, it goes higher on the list. And I'm just,
Yeah.
you'll forgive me, I'm just simplifying it quite a bit. But that, I think, if I go back to a quick subject we talked about a moment ago, usually you're dealing with what is going on MoDOT's 5-year plan, for example, and they're rating things. And then you have funds that go to the Mid-America Regional Council, right? They're rating things. And I think the value of what we talked about earlier as far as our legislative asks are trying to figure out, can we go around those? Because usually in those cases, we don't stack up very well with more urbanized areas that have more funding available to throw into things like this. And maybe I'll stop there so the administrator can check my work, but that's how I would.
Well, and so when I said the county, I was talking about us, right?
Yeah.
But Kearney and Smithville, they have been very successful in getting these funds. And to your point, you're right. We don't have the traffic counts. But there are projects that we could apply for
Sure.
that could tap into what Smithville and.
Right, to your point, because then you're saying, I'm just extending a project that already exists, that's already been funded, right? So no, that is certainly a way to look
And I
at it.
think that's something we need to be looking at, because honestly, you know, I would like to see more of these roads get off our books and put into the municipalities. Smithville has an annexation plan that they are looking at. Kearney has an annexation plan that they're looking at along the 92 corridor. They kind of want to meet in the middle. But if we could
Help that along.
help that out, you know, and then give them the, you know, the incentive to annex that, then that's not our problem no more, right? So.
By the way, one more complication that we need to deal with, and we are dealing with, and that is how projects are rated.
Right.
It's a huge deal. By and large, there are, essentially, the process is run by MARC boards, or MARC staff. We're partnering with Platte County in an effort to try to even the playing field, because in my opinion, the playing field is stacked against the more rural areas, and it favors the more urban areas. So we are putting people in place on those. We're trying to put observers in there, both from Clay and Platte counties, to start working on how it is that we level the playing field so that we can access those. One of the reasons that when you want to put in an application, you want to make sure there's a reasonable chance of success. If you start out already at a disadvantage because the way the rules are set, it becomes something of a moot point. So we started doing that a few months ago. There are representatives there now who are following it, and we're trying to get more even rules, which are going to help us to acquire some of these funds a bit more. So there's a lot of different ways to commit this problem, and we've talked about a number of them. Commissioner.
Well, what I wondered, so who sits on the transportation, would it be the transportation group?
There are basically two of them. One is surface transportation, that would be Scott Wagner.
I sit on that.
Then on TT, I don't know if we have a second seat there, I don't
Do we
believe we
have
do.
one that just talks for roads?
Total transportation is the other, that's myself and Carl are on, I'm sorry, Carl and I sit on that. So that's where we're at on that, and that is where we're trying to affect those changes. Another example is, because we're trying to put together a partnership with our other neighbors, other counties, one of the things that we are doing is trying to start establishing a voting block. So when these priorities do come up, there was an instance earlier this year where there was a project that came up, and it was being denied on the grounds that it did not quite fit all the qualifications. So it didn't rise to the level. We were able to push that one
All
through.
right, so here's the thing. We know the money's there. We know it has to be done in a timely manner, and we know that there's a lot of pluses and minuses there that we have to go through to get it. As someone on the transportation board, how can you start that ball rolling? Do you then tell our highway people, our road people, hey guys, there's going to be money, tell me what is top priority right now? Or if we form this committee that he's talking about, then could that committee work with you and start getting some priorities set up? So when the time comes that money's available, we've got our little grubby mitts out there trying to grab it.
Part of the problem
You
is
know?
it's a competitive
And
atmosphere, and the
why
rules.
haven't we done it before?
Because
It's
it is
crazy.
it's a competitive atmosphere, and we are just now getting to the point where we have two impediments. One, Commissioner Wagner had just brought up, and that was the lack of the monies already in place. The other is the one that we're working on the other side, and that is when we apply for things, they are not going to get through because the rules are in my opinion, I'll just put it that way. I don't want to screw our chances up, but in my opinion, the rules are set against us, and we need to correct the way the scoring is done, because when you make a bid, you get scored on a various number of
And
things.
I get that.
But I mean, no, it gets broad.
Yeah.
Now, in my opinion, there might be too much emphasis put on green initiatives, that sort of thing. It's like, we all care about the environment, but we got to have some roads.
I get all that, but I'm saying if Kearney can get it done, Smithville can get the money, Of course, there are guys sitting on there, but so are our guys. If they can get the money, then let's isolate an area that's really bad, and let's say, this is our project, you know? And yeah, we're not gonna have the traffic count, but I don't know that Smithville does either. I just think that we're missing the boat, and even if we think we're doing it and just as an exercise in futility, we still need to go after the money, and we should have been going after it for years in the past.
And this resurfacing doesn't require money. MoDOT, or Mark takes care of that. They cut the checks, they do everything, so funding's not an issue with the resurfacing. And,
Wow.
and like I said, they're $1 million, came in $1 million under budget, and they're just gonna start moving on down the list, and we have no projects on that list.
So I would just, if I can interject, I would just say, you know, if you don't ask, you don't get.
That's right.
But I will also say, it comes back to what the categories are and what are within those categories to ask for. And so if you ask, well, how does Kearney get it? Well, 19th Street, you've got a lot of traffic going through there, right? So it does come back to what is being asked, and it's important to note that the Mid-America Regional Council, because it's the master planning organization of the area, when federal funds come through and all those federal programs, they are the gatekeeper. And they make up the rules by which you are going to go ask for them. So if you submit something that's not going to tick all those boxes, and it gets in front of everybody, and believe me, all those asks are over-programmed, every single one of them. And so they're going to because I've experienced this, they're going to take a look at this, look at those projects, you're going to see what the scores are, and if you're below X, you're not going to get recommended. If you're above, you will. And then it goes on to the next group. And so,
But like you said,
but if you don't ask, you don't get. And so that is correct.
right. So we ask.
So I guess that's all to say. I would say you got to ask, but I also want to temper it with a little bit of realism too, right?
Yeah.
So I'll leave that.
Administrator, did you want to chime in?
Just a couple of items.
And by the way, I apologize for Mr. Molnix, we're not including you, I hope, but we will get back to you. I just thought this discussion was one worth having, if you don't mind being patient with us.
They're all great discussions, and we've had those discussions because, again, we do believe that the county roads in the unincorporated area are at a disadvantage when it comes to the criteria of it. And so while you may say, well, that's great, Kearney got it, we don't think of Kearney as part of the urban, but Kearney's project is different than ours. They're curbing, they're stormwater issues. They've got sidewalks because it's intermodal, you get points for that. We don't put sidewalks. And so we're not interested in not applying for those, but there are many of those that we don't qualify for. We know our projects won't. They don't. So we have a group between Clay County and Platte County that's trying to work to get the criteria changed, to be more open to areas that are growing, or as we are in the unincorporated area. I will say we do apply for MARC grants, and I will remind the commission, in next year's budget, you will see we got awarded $3.2 million through MARC to do a bridge project.
Good.
So, we look for those categories that we feel like our projects will be well received, meet the criteria, and go after. We would love to get $1 million in resurfacing, and we'll explore it to see, as they continue to change their criteria, do we qualify?
Yeah. Well, the great thing is, if we have that $3 million for that bridge, then that frees up maybe a little bit of money for something else.
Right.
So, yeah, it all works out in the end.
But the thing is, it's going to have to be a multi-attacked problem.
Yeah.
We need to be talking about reserves, we're talking about the correct criteria, and there seems to be a reticence on the part of MARC to do capacity increasing roads, which brings us back to 92. So yeah, we've got fights on all fronts, plus, although there is money that sometimes does go unexpended, the list that I see have a decent number of turned down issues, both in rural and municipal areas. So I mean, these are highly competitive, and we've got to start competing on every level, and that is kind of the crux of what the partnership between ourselves and Platte County, and for that matter, the other collar counties that we're trying to get, is they have similar problems, so we're trying to get that mechanism, start changing those qualifications to where our ability to get in there, if we can get money for some of those main arteries, it loosens up money for some of the more residential type roads. So the more money that comes in, the easier it is for us to distribute it in ways that are going to be effective, hopefully, throughout the county. That's the mission.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mr. Maloney, we've been, Mr. Johnson, Commissioner Johnson, did you want to chime in before I went back to?
Yeah, just real briefly, I think Dana answered kind of what I was going to talk about, but my question was simply with this MARC money, which is, I was not aware of this, and $1 million was given back or wasn't used. How many times have we applied for that money?
That would be something that the administrator could more easily answer.
And then the other question is, how many times have we been turned down?
Again, because that goes through the administration.
I don't have those numbers in front of me. We can certainly get that information to the commission.
And, do you sit on that board?
Yes, and here's what has to happen is we've got to get the votes. If it comes short of the criteria, we can move it up. The criteria is, I suppose, theoretically a guideline, but we have to have the votes to move it up the criteria ladder so that it will be funded.
Thank you.
So in other words, if all of the people, or if the people who sit on that board from, say, Clay County and Platte County vote a certain way, we are severely outnumbered. So what we need to do is to start working through, A, the criteria, make sure that we score higher in the first place, and then B, that we start forming relationships with some of our friends who have similar issues and start pushing it that way. That's kind of what we're trying to put together.
Yeah, and I think, as it was alluded to, you can't win if you don't enter. We got to be entering every chance we can, and as many roads that we have in this county, I'm sure we can meet some of those criteria for whatever it is. We've got to be able to meet some of those criteria. I can't imagine that we're the only county who doesn't meet criteria to have MARC money for roads.
We are not. This is a common problem with Platte County, with Clay County, with Ray County, with Cass County. They all have this same problem. That is the reason for us to band together this way. And it takes a little time to forge this alliance. And we also, while their rules of the road are different, we also reach out and interact with Leavenworth and Wyandotte counties.
I'd like to be kept up to date a little bit more on it. I guess if you're on the board, if you can let us know a little more often about when these things are coming up, criteria that we need to meet, that kind of stuff, that we might know about these things, because we need to take advantage of it. These are the other side of the ledger thing that we were talking about, without going directly to raising taxes, whether it's grant money or MARC money or whatever money it is coming from other sources, we need to aggressively be pursuing those kinds of things. Again, you can't win if you don't enter, and we need to know what's out there and be kept apprised of that and apply for everything we can, I think.
Well, like I say, it's a matter of putting together our alliance. And yes, I would be happy to. We also have monthly meetings through the both Platte and Clay counties through their different EDCs that review this thing. So there's that I think it might not be a bad idea to let people know about. But yeah, a lot of it is the upfront work it takes to start building relationships with those other counties. And like I say, to go in there and root out where those criteria are. In other words, if you need a score of, say, 80 to qualify, if we're at, say, 70 or 75, we could probably push it through. If we are down in the 30s, we cannot. And since there is, again, in my opinion, there are I think, ways stacked against us, and that's why it's good that we have Mayor Boley on that, because we need his help, and he has been helpful. Don't get me wrong, but this is something that is established for quite a while, and it's hard to dig it out because there are people who get that money, and we're going to have to go in and fight for it. You're totally right.
Well, I think part of the issue is we need to apply for it and be rejected and show a pattern of rejection for those applications if that's the case.
I'm not sure where I'm not sure a pattern of rejection. I mean, it does us some, I guess, emotional good, but I would rather start winning myself, and I don't think.
Can't do that either if we don't apply.
we got to apply, but we've also got to make sure that we are hitting the criteria. So
Yeah, so
it
I
is a
think-
bit of a chicken and an egg thing, but that's why we've got to attack it on all fronts.
Yeah, I certainly think as a county, if we're applying over and over again and we're not getting any awards, that we can show a pattern here that maybe the system isn't working correctly. Maybe the criteria isn't correct. Maybe something needs to change. We're a big county, we're a fast-growing county. We should certainly be on the table with getting received. And the fact that they left $1 million on the table and we didn't apply for any of it, if that's what I understand.
Well, and I'm sorry, Commissioner Wagner, was Withington, that is money that was left unprogrammed, and I'm going to get back to you on this, but those are monies, if I understand correctly, that were not expended in the original disbursements.
So you could apply for this resurfacing program. The contract came back $1 million under budget, right? So there was an extra $1 million. So what they're gonna do is they're just gonna start moving down the list. So like if they pick 20 projects, they're gonna start at 21 and just go down until.
So respectfully, Jerry, how does Jason know this information, but you don't if you sit on the board?
I do see these things, but the thing is, as he says, they move down the list. We have to move up the list. Otherwise, that's where it's going to go. So if, once they've hit the line and they have that money, it starts to ripple down or cascade down. And that is what we need to do, is to start. But we have to be high enough on the list to be at least viable. We might be able to skip over somebody, but you've got them who do have their votes as well. So yeah, our criteria scores have to be better. And the only way we do that is by going in there and changing those. And as you may well imagine, it's not, our pleas don't fall on deaf ears by any means, but they are not anxious to, everybody who wants that money is not anxious to see Clay County get more of it. This is highly competitive. So yeah, and that's why we're working the way we are.
And is this another board position that you're on because it's required to be the presiding commissioner?
I would have to look and check on that. If you think I'm doing a poor job, let me know.
You don't know the answers, Jerry.
I'm telling you.
Commissioner Withington has the answers today. Commissioner Withington knows they left $1 million on the table. We should know that. We should know when there's time to apply to that stuff and we should be up to date on all that stuff. When you represent the commission on a board, you represent all of us. We should be getting that information back to us. We're not on several boards. And this goes back to a deeper issue where I think you're on too many boards to stretch too thin. I'm not on any marked boards. I'm your backup for one public safety board. That's it. I don't even get a vote. You do. You're on way too many boards when you have 6 other people here that can help out with that and be a better representative for our people in our Clay Countyans here, our taxpayers, so that we don't leave $1 million on the table. So we're at least applying for it and getting rejected for it.
We don't leave $1 million on the table. As Commissioner Withington said, it cascades down the list.
But we're not even on the list. But we're not even on the list.
We're not even on the list, first of all. We have to be on the list. Did you know that there was $1 million unspent?
I knew there was money unspent, but the thing is, you don't just say, we want that money. You've got to be, again, working to it. That's why the criteria has to be changed, because until we change that criteria, we're never going to get the kind of money that we need to be able to get from this. And
unless we find roads and bridges that match that criteria, which I'm sure we have in our county.
I wouldn't, but the thing is, a lot of the criteria, in my opinion, is two things. One of them, I think they put too much weight on the green initiative stuff, in my opinion, and we do not fall into that category. Secondarily, there is a kind of a there's kind of a mindset, attitude, I don't know what you want to call it. I'm trying not to be offensive because I want to work with these people, but there is an inclination to not do capacity increasing roads. And so we've got a lot of work to do, and we've been doing it.
You've been talking about wanting to work with these people. You've been on that commission for how many years now? And we still haven't got anything from it?
I wouldn't say we have not gotten anything from it. Is that accurate?
How do you not know that? How do you not know the answer to that?
Know the answer to, have we gotten any money out of Mark?
Yes.
Yeah, we have gotten money out of Mark.
What have we gotten money for? Okay, you don't have to answer that, Jerry, but you see what the point I'm making. We're letting things go by. We need a good representative
Well,
on
we
these
got-
different
what we
boards
got-
that can
okay,
make sure
here's
we
an
get
example.
everything we can for our county and for our citizens.
Here's an
And
example.
I'm
We
not trying to
got,
attack
we
you,
got a
Jerry, but it's
bridge done
frustrating.
last.
You're interrupting me, Jerry. You're not letting me
I
finish.
apologize. Go right ahead.
And I don't want to attack you. I certainly don't want to have to publicly attack you like this, but what's important isn't any of us, it's our citizens and the taxpayers. And the fact that we have roads that need to be fixed. And there's money out there, aside from taxing our Clay County citizens even more, there's possible other money sources out there that could be helping us do this. We need to take advantage of that, and it's frustrating that you've been on this commission for I don't know how many years now, and it hasn't happened. We got to make that happen. We got to put if you've had so many years on market and haven't built those relationships yet, let's put somebody on there who could build those relationships and get some things done. And again, I don't mean to publicly attack you on this, but we need to move the ball forward. We need to move the ball down the field. We got to make some things happen. You know, just like when we talked about public safety. We talked about public safety. We all ran on public safety. We've been talking about public safety for a decade now. We've been at the bottom of the barrel for public safety until just this year. It's like the same thing with roads and bridges. We've had problems with this for years and years and years. We got to move the ball forward. We got to make some changes that's going to move the ball forward. And if it means we got to replace people on commissions or whatever it is, committees, whatever it is, we got to do something different. And it's just frustrating to me that I'm hearing about this stuff now when we should have all known about this long before. And I've said enough. I'll leave it at that.
I will point out that the Stockdale Bridge is one of the things that got funded most recently. You know, it kind of got, well, anyway, that would be one of them. And, you know, this is something we should probably have a discussion about.
Commissioner Nolte, I just wanted,
Yes.
Jay, I found out about it about 4 o'clock. So that's why I just said it now. I haven't been sitting on it or anything, so.
Okay. I'm sorry, before we go to was there anyone else who wanted to add anything to that? Commissioner Wagner?
Yes.
So we can kind of round this off and then go back to the constituents.
So first of all, Mr. Mullenix, you got the grand deal tonight. Is
my road fixed when I go home?
I appreciate your patience, and because you got all kinds of information you probably didn't come here for. I will say, because I was on the board of MARC at one point in my past service, that there's two things. One, that those committees that are actually looking at and scoring things and pushing projects forward are the ones that do 95% of the work. And just because someone sits on the board of MARC, I'm just going to tell you from past experience that what comes up is the collective thought of how those dollars are allocated. And it is very difficult for any one person on the board to say, nope, it's got to be this. It's very difficult. That being said,
thank you.
Again, it boils down to, if we're not asking, then there's nothing for anyone on the board to do. And I will also say, because I'm on Surface Transportation Program now, and I sat in on TTPC in my past life, that the importance of staff putting those projects forward are critical. And the final thing I'll say is that, as I mentioned before, these programs are always over-programmed. The big dollar stuff is always over-programmed. And if one is going to say, well, I don't think, because my points are 30 points and yours are 70, but it should go to me, you have a room full of electeds from all over who say, well, wait a minute, now you're going over top of mine. And so the importance of talking about criteria, as slow as molasses as it might be, you know, it doesn't happen overnight. And so I don't want to say anyone's right or wrong or anything like that. I've been through it. But it always comes back down, if we don't have a project to put up, then none of it matters. So let's develop those projects. And then that gives us an opportunity to fight for them, whether you're on surface transportation, whether you're on TTPC, whether you're at the board. You got to have the projects. So I appreciate your politeness for being up here and your patience for being up here and taking in all the rest of this stuff. But I guess I do too, Mr.
Well,
Mullinax.
that's a good thing.
But do you have anything you'd care to, I mean, because we
No,
did
I
kind of
just,
get
no, I
off
want
on
to
our
thank
way here.
everybody on the board for listening to me. And like I said, I'm not doing this for me. This is not a me project. This is for everybody that's on that road. There's 26 houses on that road, and there's about 10 of them that are new within 10 years. That's $500,000. They pay a lot of taxes to drive on that road. And if any of you people that's on the board here have any questions about the board, go drive it. That's all you got to do. Just go drive it. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But I just don't understand is how the other roads get paved and that one there doesn't. And like I said a while ago, and I'm going to ask one more time, if you got a project set up for this year to pave to asphalt, you don't have to do it all in 1 year. Schedule the rest of it for the next year in the budget. Because then you're going to have money. You done spent, $10 million on the other roads, spent $1 million on mine. I'd be happy. So, but no, I want to thank everybody. I appreciate it.
By the way, please make sure that you verify your contact information before you leave so that we
I
can
will
make
do
sure
that,
communication
Mr.
flows.
I will do that. Thank you very much. Thank all of you.
Any other citizen care to come forward and comment on this subject? Very well. It seems there's no one else on the board except for Commissioner Lawson. This was your subject, so if you would like to go ahead and conclude our discussion.
There's only one thing I did want to find out about. Recently, we've got a big culvert that they're putting in on 92 Highway, and it's right at Cordell Road. So, of course, I've gotten some calls from the folks on Cordell Road because they say, hey, everybody's coming over my road now, because 92 is blocked. But one kind gentleman said to me today, I've had 2 people stop at my house and say, how the heck do I get out of here and get back on 92? And I wondered, I don't know if the state can put out detour signs on our roads. But if they cannot, why is it that when you hit Cordell Road, now people coming from the west going east, they see the sign down there and there's plenty of ways they can turn around and go back and, go up 35 or something. But the folks coming across 92, they come about 8 miles and then they hit that darn thing. And they don't know which way to go. I've lived here for so darn long, I know exactly how to get out there. But he's found some people that were wandering around. So for the highway, our people, why can't we put signs out that say, detour, then you hit, there's a kind of a curve back in there, you need to let them know, and then they hit Jesse James Farm Road. So then take them back out to 92 Highway. It would take 1, 2, 3, 4 signs. Some, just little signs, they don't have to be big, a darn arrow, and divert those people back the way they should come. I don't know if we can do that. Is there something that says we can't, or what?
And I apologize, so I'm going to catch up a
No.
little bit. I was talking to Mr. Molnix. Are you talking about a highway that's closed and detouring? And should we put signs up? So that's a liability issue for the county, and we really can't. MoDOT has to, if it is a state highway, they have to detour onto state roads. They cannot detour people onto county roads.
But can we put an arrow to help those folks not get lost?
That it's a question about that, and we can certainly look into it, because what happens then if you start detouring the traffic that is on a highway? Many of our county roads are not built to sustain the type of traffic truck traffic, weight of those vehicles. And if you start detouring onto our roads, then they're going to tear up our roads even more.
There's nowhere else for them to go. I
Well,
mean,
and that's what we need to look at to see where is
Yeah.
MoDOT, where are they relocating them to? And is there good
They're not.
signage and how do we do that? They
it's
have no-
right there, as you're coming across 92, you're going west.
Right?
You're just at the, all I can say is at the top of the hill before you start going into Kearney.
And they have no signage up at
Yeah,
all?
and they've got a big sign there that says road closed.
But they didn't
The
detour
highway
you before
department.
that?
Huh?
They didn't detour before they got there and said road closed ahead,
No,
detour
no,
here?
no,
Yeah,
no.
so we can reach out to MoDOT and see what we can do to help that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be so
Yeah.
nice. It just that they're gonna come on our Cordell Road anyway. If they go the other way, they just dead end. But if they go to the right or to the north, and then they wind back around, they end on by Jesse James Farm, and then they just make a big circle back out to 92. But,
We're thrilled that MoDOT is doing the 92 project in the Northland. The
Yeah.
problem is, we are seeing all that traffic on our
Sure,
roads, and our roads
sure.
are taking a beating for that.
pretty nice road too.
Yeah,
So
and
it's-
so, we'll work with them on that.
Yeah, please.
That will conclude then the discussion, and a lively one, and one I think that was, I hope, informative. That brings us to administrator comments. Administrator?
Just a couple of items. Number one is to remind everyone to vote on Tuesday, and certainly if they have a conflict, they can go tomorrow to vote. There's still early voting tomorrow, I believe, at the election office, but certainly Tuesday is election day here in the county. And then the next meeting of the commission is November 9th, next Thursday, at 6 o'clock here in the chambers.
Thank you. Next is commissioner comments. I think we'll start with Commissioner Thompson. You've been quiet this evening, so we'll put you on the spot first, if you don't mind.
I have been so quiet over it. I'm a little hoarse in my throat. I actually don't have any comments. So I'm hoping we're going to get some of these issues resolved and continue doing our business here in Clay County, and I'll leave it with that.
Very good. Commissioner Johnson, no comments. Commissioner Withington?
I just want to say there was a news report that came out that said downtown Kansas City's not safe. I just want to tell any business looking to relocate, Clay County's open for business.
Commissioner Lawson, I want to wait on you a little bit because I wanted you to, thankfully you had a lot to say, and I don't want to overtax you, but now is another comment, another chance for us to take of your wisdom.
I'll tell you this, nobody's ever said, I don't want to overtax you. In my house, nobody ever says, stop talking. But no, the only thing, I appreciate the people that came out tonight, and I know there's a lot of frustration over roads. I've dedicated myself to try to get it fixed properly. I'm just one little woman, but I feel as though that we've got a great commission and and we've got a great staff. We've got a wonderful staff. So I think working together, we can get this all done. And I appreciate everybody, and thank you so much.
Thank you for your discussion item. Commissioner Wagner?
Just a simple, go vote on Tuesday, and if you can't go Tuesday, vote tomorrow if you want to. And support your...
Yes.
Yeah, and vote... Stole my thunder. Vote yes on Prop A. A ball of fire over there. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Carpenter, would you have anything? My comment would be that, yes, please vote, be sure to vote, if necessary, vote early. But I would also urge that every voter take the time to become educated on all the issues that are before them. Our best protection of our freedoms is an informed electorate, so please don't just vote, but be an informed voter. I think that is probably the most important thing we can do for this democratic republic that we live in. That brings us to recess and adjournment. We are adjourned. Thank you.